Welcome to the Sherdog Radio Network preview for UFC Fight Night 271, Adesanya versus Pyfer, also known as UFC Seattle. I'm your host, Ben Duffy of Sherdog.com, and with me, as usual, is Keith Shillan, the executive producer of the Sherdog Radio Network. Keith, how you doing this evening?
I'm doing good, brother. I was a little more happy after we do a recap show when it ends early and I can actually go to bed at a normal time, get a good night's sleep. So, I'm feeling good. How you doing, brother?
I feel pretty well myself. Yeah, UFC London took place barely 24 hours ago as we speak right now, recording this preview on Sunday evening. It was an interesting card. Certainly left us with plenty to talk about. We can only hope the same of the UFC's offering from Seattle this coming weekend. I'm looking at 13 fights. Got Israel Adesanya versus Joe Pyfer.
Yeah. I'm laughing. I'm like, what am I talking about? Good night's sleep. Right afterwards, I watched the entire NCAA wrestling finals and went to bed at like 2 a.m. What the hell am I talking about? I was up at 7.
You got your me time is what we're saying.
Okay,
whether you chose to use it to sleep or to watch, the greatest component martial arts of MMA, which is wrestling, of course,
Yes.
that's entirely up to you. This coming card, 13 fights. We got Adesanya versus Pyfer at the top, a former middleweight champ versus a rising contender. And we've got a mix of up-and-comers, veterans, fringe contenders all the way down the card. Talk to me a little bit about UFC Seattle. What's your overall thoughts on the card? What are you looking forward to most?
I actually give it a pretty decent score. I'm going to give it like a B. And the reason I say that is I feel like the standard since they've come over to Paramount has gotten so low. And I was like, I'm still going to, this is a house show. I'm going to hold to a house show. And just like, I'm lowering my standard myself. The main event, I'm still a fan of Adesanya because I was such a high fan of him at his peak that I'm still praying he has like something left in him. Joe Pyfer wise that like this is where the escalators cross each other. If Pyfer beats Adesanya, I mean, just put him against other names on their way out if he has a couple fights left. And Pyfer at the end, you'll find out who he is. If he can't beat Adesanya in the sun, he's not a real contender. I mean, at this point, every contender is beating Adesanya. But the rest of the card, I mean, what I noticed is I had a hard time picking winners in a lot of these fights. There's 1 or 2 fights I got. This one should be pretty easy, but generally speaking, this is a pretty even matchmaking.
You are dead right. In fact, obviously we know that our loyal listener base tunes in for the sport within a sport, which is you trying to project the betting lines. This is going to be a fun one because we have had some cards this year where I've come right out and said there's only one fight on this whole card that's closer than the 2-1. There's 4 fights that are greater than the 5-1 line. This is a close one. There are only a couple of really wide lines on this card. One of those is a short notice replacement where, the UFC's got to plug in what parts they can. But there are 4 or 5 fights on this card that are a near pick 'em. So we're going to have a lot of fun throwing out the lines and asking you to guess who is the slight favorite in some of these. Outside of the obvious ones, because the Adesanya versus Pyfer headliner and the Grasso versus Barber co-main event both have fairly immediate contender implications. Especially if the younger fighter wins in either of those fights, they have more of a clear path to a title shot. So outside of those two, what are you looking forward to most in this card?
If I'm only going to pick one fight, I'm probably going to go, Abdul-Malik versus how you say his name? Belgaroui.
Belgaroui.
Yeah. You got, I know he's, up there in age, but you got like a powerful wrestler versus a powerful striker. They both, can make a little bit of a run. So I think that's a fight I'm looking forward to. The one thing I will say that I had a hard time picking my fight pass. Fast pass pick this week. So I'm like, I don't know which one, with also like saying like, well, I got to talk about Mikey Kessler's last fight. Like that's,
sure.
So I'm not going to put the fast pass on that one, but I'm tempted to. And, and I really try to stay away from like UFC newcomers. So
sure.
Yeah, I'm not like bored by any fights on this card.
I think that's fair. There's an obvious skip fight to me on this one, but it's
Okay.
not Chiesa versus Price. You know, I'm interested to talk about that one in its own way. It's more interesting than Chiesa versus Carlston Harris, which is what we were gonna get until Harris fell off the card. Any other general thoughts about this one before we jump right in?
No, it's a good card. Let's do it.
All right. At least according to the UFC's bout sheet as of the beginning of fight week, the UFC at Seattle undercard begins with a strawweight matchup between Alexia Thainara and Bruna, Brazil. Thainara, the 28-year-old Brazilian, is 13-1 overall. She's 2-0 since joining the UFC out of season 8 of the Contender Series, and she is on a 11-fight win streak overall. She fought most recently at UFC Perth last September, where she won a unanimous decision over Loma Lookboonmee. She will look to make it 3 straight in the UFC and will look to actually erase her only career loss against Brazil. 32-year-old, Brazilian of course, 11-6-1 overall, 3-4 since joining the UFC out of season 6 of the Contender Series. She is coming in off a loss, and she has, in fact, alternated losses and wins since joining the UFC in 2023. But she fought Ketlin Souza at UFC Fight Night Bautista versus Oliveira back in February, where she lost a unanimous decision. Keith, Thainara is your favorite. She's the biggest favorite on the card. Take a guess what the line is.
I thought Chiesa was going to be the biggest favorite on the card.
That tells you something.
I will say, I will say, I mean, Bruna Brazil has a win over her, and Bruna Brazil is, she's not a, she alternates wins and losses. I'll say you said the biggest, so I'll say like minus 330.
Buckle up, Shillan and Duffy show listeners, as it's going to be one of those nights. Alexia Thainara minus 600, Bruna Brazil plus 450 coming back. And
all right, so bad. Oh, sorry, I hate to do this. I didn't know the bout order.
All right,
I'm using my fast pass right away.
All right. Hey, okay. I'm going to give this one a quick 15 seconds. Their first fight was 7 years ago. It was within like the first 2 or 3 career fights for both. It's irrelevant to who they are now. At this point, Thainara is going to work Brazil. Give me Thainara by second round submission.
Do we have exactly the same? I have Thainara by second round submission. I just think I think this is a super easy fight to pick. Yeah. And I didn't know that she was the biggest favorite on the card, but I think she's going to take her down and just beat her up on the ground until Brazil makes a mistake and Thainara locks in a submission.
Next up on the UFC Seattle undercard is a men's bantamweight matchup between Ricky Simón and Adrian Yanez. Simón, the 33-year-old Washington State native, is 22-7 overall. He is 10-6 since joining the UFC as a veteran of season 1 of Dana White's Contender Series, where he fought, won, but was not immediately signed. But at any rate, 10-6 since then. He's coming in off a loss. He fought most recently at UFC Fight Night Bonfim versus Brown last November, where he lost a unanimous decision to Hani Barcelos. That snapped a 2-fight win streak for him. He will look to get back into the win column here against Yanez. 32-year-old from Houston is 17-6 overall, 6-3 in the UFC. He's coming in off a loss as well. He dropped a split decision to Daniel Marcos all the way back at UFC on ESPN, Covington versus Buckley. You heard that right. He fought most recently on the last UFC card of 2024. So he's been on the shelf for 15 months, recuperating from some injuries here and there, but he's ready to step back into the cage. Keith, this is one of the close lines on this card, so I'll throw it out there. Your favorite is minus 145, underdog plus 120. Who are they?
It's a tough one. Ricky Simón's favorite.
You are correct. Ricky Simón, minus 145. Adrian Yanez, plus 120. Obviously, I'm very familiar with Adrian Yanez. He was probably the most obvious next level talent in the local Houston scene for probably 2 full years before he joined the UFC. I had high hopes for him in the UFC. He joined the promotion kind of close to not too long after Sean O'Malley did. And my thought was, you know what? Sean O'Malley is such a big personality and such an obvious kind of anointed future superstar. Maybe Yanez can sneak in behind, draft, behind him a little bit like a Tour de France racer, and get some seasoning, sneak up the rankings a little bit without having to get pushed too far too soon. I thought it might work out in his favor that men's bantamweight was such a logjam a couple of years ago. He has not panned out to that level. And that's fine. Not every good prospect turns into a contender, but it's specifically concerning the ways in which he has not panned out, because it's almost as if he's taken a bit of a step back on the things that he was supposed to be great at. Like, if you'd asked me for this 15-second scouting report on Adrian Yanez a week before his UFC debut, I would have said he's going to slot right in as one of the best pocket boxers in the division, like, let alone the whole UFC. And while he may not be a future title contender, I bet he stakes out some space, at least in the bottom ranges of the top 10 for a while there. That really hasn't happened. And the way in which it has not happened is he's been getting outstruck. That's concerning, because his losses ahead of the UFC were generally persistent wrestlers who could keep him on his back foot, take him down, keep him down enough to either win rounds or just keep him from doing Adrian Yanez stuff to him on the feet. Like, I look all the way back to his loss to like Levi Moles in LFA,
John,
which I think was his first. Yeah, Miles. Exactly. But then at the UFC level, he seemed to be panning out that way. Like, Davey Grant, very underrated win, but then he got soundly outstruck by Rob Font. Got his front leg sawed off by Jonathan Martinez. And his fight with Daniel Marcos, I thought was competitive, but again, it was Yanez just kind of hitting a wall against a guy that I would have said a couple years ago should be a favorable style matchup for him. So at 31, he's not a prospect anymore. It's go time. If he's going to be more than just another dude in the UFC, Ricky Simón, who is only a year or two older than him, but feels 15 years older in fight age, this should be a guy that he should beat. And Simón, honestly, in some ways, Simón feels more like a prospect than Yanez, because Simón is 33 years old, and he still feels like a guy that kind of gets by on athleticism, aggression, pace. Like, he like his basic skills still feel a little raw. Like, he's a wrestle boxer, but he's not a airtight technical wrestler. He's a guy that will throw a high volume of punches and get in the guy's face, but makes plenty of mistakes on the feet, like leaves himself open. Simón is exactly the kind of guy that if this was 2022, 2023, and he was Yanez's second UFC opponent, I would have been like, oh, watch, Adrian Yanez is going to style on this guy, and we're going to know we have a future top 10 fighter on our hands. I just don't know that anymore. I don't know if Yanez can fight off his takedowns. I don't know if Yanez will try some takedowns of his own. He's always had some underrated, sneaky offensive wrestling of his own. And I don't know if he's going to be able to remain composed, keep the range in the face of Simón kind of bearing down on him, moving forward, just throwing flurries of hooks. I'm glad the line is close, because it does feel like a hard fight to call. And I'm not surprised that the line leans a little bit Simón's way. Until the Barcelos loss, he had looked good against some good prospects in Javid Bashrat and Cam Smotherman. It pains me to do so, but I'm leaning Simón by decision here. Just Yanez, he's had a whole year off. I know that the kind of training and coaching situation at Metro Fight Club has taken a turn. It's no longer 27-year-old Adrian basically trying to fill the shoes of a father figure like it was when Saul Solis died. Like, a lot of those guys train with Eve Edwards now, including him. But yeah, it's kind of a wait and see with Adrian Yanez for me. Would love to be wrong. Again, I like the guy as a person, but his UFC run so far has been a little bit of a disappointment, and I'm thinking that probably continues on Saturday. Give me Simón by decision.
Yeah, this fight, I'm intrigued by this one because I think there is a lot of question marks. Like, what does both guys have left? I totally agree with what you said about Yanez almost still feels like a prospect. He's got 9 fights in the UFC, which is like, wow, it's way more than I expected. Simone, I mean, he's been in the UFC forever. He's still fairly athletic, even though he's up there in age, as you mentioned. Very physically strong guy. You said he's a wrestle boxer. Yeah, back in the day, it was definitely more the case because he wrestled more. I don't know if it's but I that's obviously his pedigree. On the feet, his volume has been inconsistent. His output was very low against Vinicius Oliveira, but it was much better even in the loss to Hani Barcelos. And we all, you and I are both really high on Barcelos.
Yeah.
He still has faster hands than you'd think he would have. He still throws some combinations. He does slide in the pocket and unload some big shots. He still loves, brawl inside. I like that he works the body. He still hits pretty hard. I mean, knocked out Javid Basharat. I mean, he had knocked him out bad. Throws hard calf kicks. He does check leg kicks, which I like. His boxing defense isn't bad. He doesn't move his head enough. He rolls with punches, which people know I'm not a big fan of. He is a good wrestler, but I don't think he can wrestle as much as he used to. I mean, he doesn't drive through the hips anymore like he used to. More of his takedowns are going to be like reactionary doubles if you overpress him. If he does get the fight to the ground, I like his top game. He really controls. He works inch by inch to get to a better position. He's a traditional wrestler. He looks like a head and arm triangle chokes. He gassed late against Mario Batista, but in fairness, that was a really high pace fight for only 3 rounds, and his cardio looked better against Hani Barcelos. Yanez, he's got so many question marks about him. I agree. If you told me back in 2021 that these guys would be fighting 5 years later, 4 years later, something like that, I'd have been like, oh my God, like why would they hate Ricky Simone like that? And obviously that's not the case. Yanez he's a good striker. He's very poised, almost too relaxed. He'll cruise at times. He has that like Jorge Masvidal give away big portions of the round because he's not throwing enough. But he's got fast hands. He's accurate. He'll just kind of touch until there's opening, then he explodes. If you go like high guard defense with him, or if you like kind of pillar, he's very good at wrapping punches around your defense. He mixes up his rhythm and good at picking up his opponent's timing. He likes to slip shots and then counter. He's been doing a lot of dipping, especially to his right, which would be open to a high kick. I mean, someone can throw a high kick, but this is not necessarily the guy that I think would like knock him out with a high kick. But he has good power. I mean, he showed against Vinicius Salvador. He sneaks in a high kick, which he throws behind, punches. He doesn't check leg kicks though. You go back to like the Jonathan Martinez fight. Martinez batted his legs. But a big concern I have is durability. I mean, he's been hurt in a bunch of fights. I mean, I even go back to like Randy Costa was having 6. I mean, I know that was forever ago, but like Randy Costa was hurting him at times. Offensively, not much of an offensive wrestler. He's a weak defensive wrestler. He does have a solid get out game, and he is a Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu threat. Like I think he's a black belt. I shouldn't say he's a threat. He's good at keeping scrambles. I don't know if he's like a submission artist, but he's good at like at least using his jiu-jitsu to get up or put his opponent in a bad position. So I've flip-flopped it a lot, and I think a lot of questions will be answered. I think like if Simone loses to Yanez, he is what he is at this point. I think if Yanez loses Simone, though, I think it's like just bury him. Like he's low-level talent at this point. All the hype that he had at one point, forget about it. Both guys had moments of brilliance. Both have had moments where they look shot. I'm with you, man. I'm leaning towards the old man and Simon. I say he stays in Yanez's face. I say he beats him with volume. I don't think Simon will wrestle much, but he may sneak in 1 or 2 takedowns to try to win close moments of the fight. I think it'll be close. I'll go Ricky Simone. I'll say Ricky Simone by split decision.
Light heavyweights take the cage next at UFC Seattle as Navajo Stirling stakes his undefeated record against Bruno Lopes. Stirling, the 28-year-old New Zealander, is 8-0 as a professional, 3-0 since joining the UFC out of Season 8 of the Contender Series. He fought most recently at the same UFC Perth last September, picking up a unanimous decision over Rodolfo Bellato. He will look to go 9-0, 4-0 in the UFC against Lopes, 32-year-old Brazilian, 14-2 overall, 1-1 since joining the UFC as the former LFA light heavyweight champ and as a two-time veteran of the Contender Series. He lost on season 7, won on season 8, was signed afterwards. He fought most recently last May at UFC on ESPN Blanchfield versus Barber, where he got knocked out in short order by Dustin Jacoby. So he'll be looking to bounce back from that. Keith, Stirling is your favorite. Take a guess at what the line is.
Well, I know it's not minus 600.
Yep, and you know it's more than minus 200.
So. Yeah, I think he's a pretty big favorite, though. I'll go around like minus 400.
It is Stirling minus 500. Lopes plus 375. And obviously, MMA math is not valid other than this kind of a thought experiment. But I saw Bruno Lopez's fight against Dustin Jacoby, and Stirling is not as seasoned and probably doesn't have quite as diverse and technical a striking arsenal as Dustin Jacoby, a guy who's had a longer MMA career and probably 50 or 60 kickboxing fights. But Stirling is bigger, younger, and faster. And Jacoby was so much faster and more technical than Lopez. It looked like Lopez was standing in quicksand. Stirling's going to have a ton of height and reach on him. Stirling is much faster. He hits like a truck. And Stirling is not a finished product at this point, obviously. He makes mistakes that eventually he's going to hit a point in this division where somebody's going to be able to punish him for him. Hell, if he was fighting Dustin Jacoby this weekend, I'd have a whole different take on it. But Lopez, to do any of the things he wants to do, is going to have to navigate the range against Stirling. And like I said, Stirling has his faults, but screwing around is not really one of them. Like, Stirling's been to decision his last 2 or 3 fights in the UFC. I don't think that happens here. I think he knocks out Lopez in the first round. Like, Lopez is going to have to run right on the Stirling's punches and kicks. Stirling's going to dust him, and is probably going to be something highlight reel worthy.
Yeah, and being that he's this big of a favorite, if he doesn't, have a good highlight, it almost feel like a loss.
Sure.
If he wins a decision with Lopez, it'll feel like a loss. Now, like you said, Stirling, he's a good Muay Thai striker. A lot of kickboxing experience. Nice snap on his shots. I like his left hook. I like the attacks the body. He has really good power. I mean, he had a beautiful KO on the Contender Series. Defensively, he actually moves his head, which is like, I know it's like an ongoing thing. I say, this guy doesn't move his head enough. He's constantly bouncing his head off the center line. Good kicking game, tons of teep kicks. He loves a high kick. He throws some question mark kicks. I love some stepping knees. He does that well. He uses his size well in the clinch. He's definitely not a wrestler or a threat on the ground, but he'll mix in takedowns just enough to kind of keep his opponents honest. And what I've liked is he's been hurt in fights, and he stays composed. When things go wrong, when he's been hurt. Lopez, I mean, we know what he is. He's a bottom of the barrel UFC guy. He's a minus athlete. He will fight out of both stances, but he's very flat-footed. He lacks output because he's constantly throwing a lot of single strikes. To his credit, he will throw some straight shots on the fight, but doesn't have a lot of power. He does attack the body, which I like. He'll throw some stepping knees. He'll throw some hard calf kicks. But defensively, he avoids strikes by backing straight up. He's been hurt a bunch in his career. Not like what I said with Stirling, where he's got hurt and he recovers well. Like, guys, I mean, he got hurt by a jab by Dustin Jacoby. And not just that, Jacoby hurt him a bunch of times. And I know Jacoby's a good striker and everything. Mm-hmm. So, I mean, take that for what it's worth. But Bruno will look to wrestle, but he's not good at it. He's a bad defensive wrestler. If he gets the fight to the ground, I do like his top guard. He's a big guy. He has 5 submission wins. He's got, he loves the head and arm chokes, but his cardio has also been bad. So I'm not as high on Stirling as others are. Like, I know some people think he's like going to fight for the title one day or something. I'm not there, but Bruno is really bad. I mean, I see Stirling dominating him everywhere and eventually getting the stoppage. I didn't go first round like you did. I'm going second round. But yeah, this is a super easy fight to pick.
I'm with you there, and it's hard for me not to compare him to someone like Carlos Ulberg, who came along really young and inexperienced in MMA terms, even though we had some kickboxing background. And it took a few fights for us to figure out whether he was going to be the guy or a guy.
Yeah, I think Ulberg's a lot. I mean, obviously he's much further along in his career, but even when he first came in, he's a little more polished, a little more explosive, better athlete, faster. But yeah, you're talking about the guy who could be the champion and like I know once a fight, a month or so.
Yeah,
like, so,
it's a month or two.
yeah.
Real quick, for our listeners, I'm going to throw a challenge out there. It's something I've been meaning to do for a couple of weeks, and Keith just reminded me when he talked about Stirling's head movement and so forth. I want you to help us put together a Shillan Duffy bingo card. I know that both of us have plenty of things that we keep coming back to and saying, and part of it's force of habit. We preview 500 or 600 fights a year, and I stand by the things I repeat over and over again. But if you check a box in your head every time Keith says that somebody pillars, or or somebody doesn't move their head enough, somebody backs straight up on the center line, if any of the things that you'll find me saying over and over again, throw them into the comments here. I will make us a bingo card and start distributing it ahead of our previews and recaps. So yeah, just let me get that in there before we talk about the next fight.
Like me saying he's not a wrestler is like the free space in the middle.
Yeah. Women's flyweights are up next on the UFC Fight Night 271 prelims as Casey O'Neill returns against Gabby Fernandes. O'Neill, the 28-year-old Scottish Australian, is 10-2 overall, 5-2 in the UFC. She's coming in off a win. That's the good news. The bad news is that win snapped the first losing streak of her career. The further bad news is that win was almost 2 years ago. We haven't seen her in the cage since UFC 305 back in August of 2024, where she won a unanimous decision over Luana Santos. Prior to that, she had lost back-to-back fights against Ariane Lipski and Jennifer Maia. So O'Neill, once looking like a future champ in this division, if we're being honest, looking to reclaim any of that prospect shine. Remind us that she's still here, still just 28 years old. And in order to do any of those things, she's going to need to get past Gabby Fernandes. 32-year-old Brazilian is 11-3 overall, 3-2 since joining the UFC as the former LFA women's flyweight champ. She is on a 3-fight win streak. She debuted in the UFC, lost her first 2 fights. It was actually 2023, the same year that O'Neill lost 2 fights in a row. But since then, she has back-to-back wins over Carly Judice, Wong Kong, and Julia Stoliarenko. The most recent of those, the Stoliarenko fight, was at UFC on ESPN, the Lidze versus Hernandez last August. So Gabby looking to make it 4 in a row here and honestly become the fringe title contender that we figured O'Neill might be by now. The line is a close one, Keith, so I will quiz you on it. The favorite is -120, underdog even money +100. Who are they?
Yeah, Fernandes is the favorite.
You are correct again. Gabby Fernandes -120, Casey O'Neill +125. And Keith, I'm going to flip this to you, but I'm just making the observation that if these two had met at the beginning of 2023, O'Neill would probably be about a -500 favorite.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah.
Because
especially is that right before she lost to Jennifer Maia?
Yep, that's right before she lost to Jennifer Maia. That's right when Fernandes was going to make her UFC debut as the outgoing LFA women's flyweight champ and looked like an okay prospect. And O'Neill, again, looked like the future of the division. How times have changed.
I'm assuming she was favored against Jennifer Maia.
Oh, yeah. She was a big favorite against Maia. She was even a favorite again against Ariane Lipski after losing to Maia.
Yeah. I mean, and she didn't look good in either. I mean, like, not just like, then she just lost. She looked terrible. This is a tough fight to pick just because of that. There's a lot of question marks. We really don't know what we're gonna get with Casey O'Neill. I mean, she's had flashes, like you said, that she looks so good, and times she has looked terrible. She does have good volume of feet. We saw that in her last fight. She was sticking and moving a lot more in her last fight. Was being good at going first and going third. She was keeping the pressure on Luana Santos well, cutting off the escapes. She, at times when Santos was coming forward, she would just stay there and kind of hold the ground. So there's a lot of stuff I liked. There's still some tools that to be an elite fighter, I really don't think she has. She doesn't have hand speed. Like her hands are kind of slow. Now she does, for a high level MMA athlete, she does have some power. Her defense isn't the best. She's still very hittable. She keeps her chin high in the air. She's been hurt a bunch. She will look to wrestle, and she chains takedowns together well. Good top control. She showed some pretty good grappling skills against Luana Santos. She has mean ground and pound when she's on top, but she's not much of a submission threat. Fernandes, southpaw. She's big for the weight class, long and lanky, a kickboxer. I'd say her striking overall is pretty good. Nice volume on the feet. She has quicker hands of the two fighters. She's pretty accurate. A lot of variety in her striking. She has good footwork. We saw her moving really well against Lerryan, and she moves a lot too, constantly cutting angles to kind of set up her shots. She generates powers because when she does commit to a shot, she really steps in, and she's a pretty big woman. She mixes punches and kicks together well. I like her kicks. She kicks everywhere. She throws some deep kicks. She will close the distance and grind in the clinch, though she's like not much of an offensive wrestler, and she's a bad defensive wrestler. But if she's taken down, she can hit some subs off her back. She has a few subs on her record. In a fight that she won against Carly Giudice, she did gas out, and I think that something has to do with it. I'm assuming she has a pretty good cut, weight cut, because she's a big one for the division. I'm glad the line is really close because I flip flopped, and that's because I have so many questions about both fighters. I mean, I think the biggest gap is probably O'Neal's offensive wrestling versus Fernandez's defensive wrestling. But I'm still going with Fernandes. I think both will have their moments. I like Fernandez's mixture of punches and kicks together. I think on the feet, she has more avenues of victory on the feet than O'Neal does, who's mostly just going to be boxing. Give me Fernandes. I'll see it's super close. Give me Fernandes, but I'll go another split decision.
Yeah, I would love to differ with you here again, just to make things a little interesting on the undercard. I would love to be able to pick the slight upset here and just like sneak in an upset pick that doesn't feel like going too far out on a limb. But watching back to Casey O'Neal's last three fights, even including the one she won over Luana Santos, you kind of orbited around the point that I was going to go straight to. It feels to me as though Casey O'Neal's athleticism has just fallen off a cliff. And I'm not making any accusations here. Like, talk about things that could be on your bingo card. My default wait and see when an undefeated fighter comes to the UFC from certain parts of the world is on record. I don't necessarily think it's that, because she was in the UFC for like 3 years. Like, I don't know, maybe beating up Roxanne Modafferi, like, it's like the videotape in the ring. She like inherited Modafferi's like oldness and poor athleticism from her, but like by beating her, I don't know. But O'Neal, there's not a 1-to-1 correlation of the exact skills, but just my general feel on her kind of reminds me of Andrea Lee, where she came to the UFC and I thought we might be getting an athletic kickboxer that might actually grow into a more complete skill set and maybe grow into some additional power, and instead kind of stayed a relatively low power kickboxer and actually started giving up a gap in athleticism to a lot of her foes. You mentioned like O'Neal's offensive wrestling actually isn't a bad tool. And again, the comparison stands as that ended up being one of the things that allowed Andrea Lee to kind of hang on to a roster spot by her nails longer than she might have. But yeah, to me, it's a wait and see with O'Neal at this point, because she's been on the shelf for 15 months, still just being 28 years old. She could look physically better. Maybe she had a bunch of nagging injuries and stuff that she's going to step in and she's going to sound like Derek Lewis and be like, I'm healthy for the first time. Like, maybe that'll be the case. Maybe we'll be looking back and being like, oh man, remember when I was ready to write Casey O'Neal off at age 28 and now, she's 33 and she's been UFC champ for 2 years. I have no idea. I'm not predicting that, but I'm saying it's more of a question mark than just a big red X. But with Fernandes, there are fewer question marks. She's a known quantity. She's I mean, she's fought, I think, twice, maybe all three of her last fights are since the last time we saw O'Neal. I can see what Fernandez's ceiling is, but it's higher than what we've seen from O'Neal. So if she comes back and it's a pleasant surprise, great. But yeah, give me Fernandez to outstrike O'Neal. I have the feeling this won't be a barn burner of a fight. It's going to be a classic middle power, mid-paced women's flyweight striking match for the most part. Give me Fernandez to win 2 rounds out of 3. Would love to be surprised either way, honestly, because otherwise this has potential to be kind of a smoke break fight. Heavyweights take the cage next at UFC Seattle as Marcin Tybura squares off against short notice opponent Tyrell Fortune. Tybura, the 40-year-old Pole, is 27-10 overall. He is 14-9 in the UFC. He's coming in off a loss. He got knocked out in short order by Ante Delia at UFC Fight Night Imavov versus Bahaljo last September. That snapped a 2-fight win streak for him. He had been scheduled to take on Walter Walker this weekend. Walker fell off the card. In steps Tyrell Fortune. 35-year-old fighting out of Arizona is 17-3 with 2 no contests overall. This will be his UFC debut. If his name is familiar to you, that is because he was in Bellator for 17 years and fought on their undercards 304 times.
That's right.
If you don't remember him as being basically part of the furniture on Bellator prelims for what felt like forever, you may also remember him as a junior college and Division II wrestling standout. He was a
nobody's remembering that. I think there's a lot of junior college wrestling fans listening to the show.
Hey, if you don't like wrestling, but you like MMA, you should be watching the junior college nationals, because that's where your next superstars come from. That's where your John Jones and Colby Covingtons come from. Yeah. Mitchell Metzenbrink ain't coming over. Yeah. Like, don't watch, Ed Ruth and Bo Nickel. Watch the junior college stars. Fortune, the last time we saw him was last September in LXF. He hammered Demario Dennis in the third round. Well, he hammered him the whole time. He finished him in the third round. This is another one where the line is close. So, Keith, your favorite is -120, underdog +100. Who are they?
Fortune's not Fortune. Tybura is the favorite. I'm surprised the line is that close, but I'm gonna say Tybura is the favorite.
Your favorite is Tyrell Fortune. Tyrell Fortune is in the UFC in 2026, and he is favored over a perennial top 15 fighter, and that is an indication of how badly Marcin Tybura is falling off a cliff. This is the most heavyweight thing ever, because Tybura, on paper, it doesn't look like he's gone anywhere. He's 3-2 in his last 5. He's 5-3 in his last 8. He's 8-4 in his last 12. Like, he's still winning more fights than he loses. So picking right back up where I was harping on the recap last weekend about people that try to preview or handicap fights or give betting lines just based on looking at stats and records. If you're just going by the raw numbers and won and lost columns, you would not understand how badly Marcin Tybura has kind of fallen off in the last couple of years. 5 years ago, a little under 5 years ago, when he lost a competitive decision to Alexander Volkov, and that snapped like a 4 or 5 fight win streak for him, I would have said Marcin Tybura is going to be the exact same dude for maybe for the next 10 years. He could do this until he's 43 or 44. He's a big bodied heavyweight who's not much of an athlete, but he stays active, stays mobile on the feet. He's a sneaky good wrestler, and he's a very good top position, like a sneaky good top position grappler. He'll probably never win a title, but he's just going to be a fixture in the top 10 forever, because he's got the kind of game that it's probably not going to fall off until the wheels really, really fall off. Like, nothing about his game really runs on athleticism or even really durability. That's not been the case. It's not the actual losses. It's how he's been losing. Because you look at his last few losses, again, since the Volkov fight. Tom Aspinall blew him out of the water. There's no shame there. But so did Ante Delia, and he just did it with superior speed, using his superior range on Tybura. Didn't let Tybura get untracked at all. And most importantly, Tybura was hurt immediately by everything Delia did. And then you look back to his last loss before that, Sergey Spivak. It's a rematch of a fight that he won pretty easily, and it was just an immediate reversal. The things that Tybura was supposed to be good at, again, wrestling, grappling, especially top position grappling, surprisingly good in scrambles for a huge heavyweight. None of that was the case. Spivak ran him over on the ground in under 2 minutes. In between, he's beaten 3 pretty bad heavyweights. Tai Tuivasa, Mick Parkin, Jonata Janice. I think Tyrell Fortune has a low ceiling in the UFC. I mean, Bellator invested so much time and money and effort in him. If Tyrell Fortune was going to turn a corner, Bellator would have pushed him harder. But Bellator had that thing where they just signed college wrestlers and just let them marinate on the prelims until they either lost a bunch of fights or won a bunch of fights, and they could send them up. Fortune never really turned that corner. But having said that, I know that Fortune is going to step into the pocket, throw like probably a 1-2, a 2-3, and then try and shoot a takedown and take Tybura down. And if Fortune had jumped ship from Bellator, say, 3 years ago, and was joining the UFC as the guy he was, leaving Bellator, and Tybura was the guy he was 3 years ago, I would have said, oh, Tybura is going to embarrass Fortune. I'm not sure about that anymore. If Fortune steps in, like Tybura's gotten so slow and just defensively slow, like not moving his head, not moving his feet, not moving his hands, I think Fortune probably steps in, hits him with a couple shots, or at least just gets inside of Tybura's range and probably body locks and trips him to the ground, and then it's anybody's fight. This is not good. Why didn't you use your fast pass on this one? Give me Tyrell Fortune to win a decision here. I would pick Fortune to get the finish, but the people who have been finishing Tybura have jumped on him early. And I don't know, like, Fortune's gas tank was really one of his biggest problems in Bellator. So if this goes past the first round, I think it's going to become just one of the worst fights of the year, where both guys are just sucking wind. Both of them want to take the fight to the ground, and neither one of them really can. Give me Fortune to win a decision in a miserable fight.
Fantastic. Dude, I was trying to figure out while you were talking how many times I've seen Tyrell Fortune fight in person. So he has 17 fights in Bellator, and he had half of those had to be a Mohegan Sun, where I was like, it's like every other month they would come to Mohegan Sun for a couple of years, and oh my God, I mean, I get to the point where, like, I've covered him and interviewed him so many times, like he starts recognizing, like, hey, what's up, buddy? How you been? And how's things? And how's your kids? And and he's a really nice guy. He's a really nice guy. His corner's really great. Like, I remember them seeing the corner, like, picking out like Wendy's, in the lobby, and I go over and say, hey, what's up, guys?
Is he still with Arizona Combat Sports, like the Lallies?
Or I haven't seen. Yeah, he was always with them. I don't know. I haven't.
Yeah.
I know I think he was with the Black Zillions for a little bit.
Okay,
but I'm not really sure. I'm talking about the Arizona guys.
Yeah,
this big black guy, this little short, bald white guy walking around together.
Yeah, Todd and Trevor Lally. Yeah.
Speaking of Wendy's, let me give you a story time with Keith. My oldest daughter, she just turned 16, and she's been trying to get a job but it's hard for her because she's in school, and obviously, like, she's a very competitive softball player, and that takes up like tons of time. So really, she put on like applications like, I can work sometimes during the week and Sundays. So she's had 4 interviews. She just turned 16, and she was playing before she turned 16, because in Rhode Island, like, some places will hire you at 15.
Sure.
So she goes to Apple. I think Cracker Barrel. Do you guys have Cracker Barrels?
We do.
Okay,
Yeah.
okay. I don't know if Cracker Barrel was like a chain beyond New England. So it was our first time. They bring her in, like, wait a minute, you're only 15? She's like, yeah, I put that on vacation. They're like, oh, come back when you're 16. So she gets all excited for an interview. Then that happens. Then she does it again with Applebee's. They say the same thing. Like, wait a minute, like, you guys don't. Can't you see that she's 15? And then McDonald's brings her in, does a whole interview after she said that she's only 15, and it was like, yeah, we're gonna keep you on fire, but when you're 16, come back. So now she's 16. She's having her first interview, and it's Wendy's. She's all excited. She like takes a shower. She was like, she doesn't dress up, but she like looks presentable and everything.
Sure.
I bring it to her interview. When she gets there, they're like, oh yeah, the hiring manager's not here. Like, you have to reschedule. I'm like, this poor girl, she can't catch a break.
And look, I mean, all of my kids at this point are, like my youngest is 21, but
yeah,
like, Lila is so far beyond the average 16-year-old in just terms of, like, she would be the dream employee. She would have been the best employee at Wendy's when she was 12.
Yeah, it's like she reminds me a lot of my wife. So my wife, when we first got married, she took like a second job just to, like, when we were like early 20s, not early 20s, but like mid 20s, like to, I think I don't know if she was pregnant. No, she couldn't have been pregnant yet, but just whatever. It's like to have extra money. So she just goes to a restaurant, which ironically is the first place we ever had a date was at this restaurant, but she wasn't working there then. And they're like, we have a hostess job. Like, she wanted to be a waitress, and like we have a hostess. And she's like, yeah, I'll do it. And then, like, she was a hostess for a week, and they're like, yeah, you're way too good to be a hostess. Like all the hostesses are standing around nothing. She's like cleaning the menus, and she's busting tables. That's my wife. So then she comes home and she's like, yeah, honey, I'm the manager now. She went from hostess to manager in like a week. Like, no, not the head manager, but one of the managers in a week. I'm like, that's my daughter. She'd be like the first one. She get hired, and like, and the next minute she, like, I don't know, own a franchise of Wendy's or something.
No, I mean, just from knowing you and from having interacted, with her a few times, just being responsible and mature and reasonably intelligent, she'd be a superstar at any of those places. Good grief.
Yeah, she's like saved. She already has enough money to buy a car already and stuff from babysitting. Anyways, that shows you how much I'm with you with the Tybura. I mean, we talk about Tybura. Even the prime in Tybura was like, borderline top 7, I mean, he probably still is, but when he's like, all right, what was it? What was the very peak of Tybura? Top 5, top 6 heavyweight. I don't know. Give or take. I was never excited about him.
Going into the Aspinall fight, he was probably like number 6.
Okay, but I was never excited about Tybura. No,
because can I throw one thing in? Of all the top 10 heavyweights, he was the guy whose fights were easiest to call. Like, they were so easy to predict. Like, if Tybura had the advantage, you knew he was going to win. The guys that were going to beat him, until Spivak and Delia, like, over the last couple of years, it was just completely obvious when he was going to win or lose. Yeah.
And well, that's not the case in this one. This the one to me is close. And when I said I'm surprised that Tybura wasn't a bigger favorite, it's more just like name value and Tybura. I mean, he's a volume striker. He tries to for heavyweight. He's never really been known for power. He's a guy who wants to march down with some quick hands. He does a lot of push kicks. He will close the distance and work in the clinch. I don't know if that's a good idea against Tyrell Fortune, but he likes grabbing like an underhook and just grinding against the fence. His game is really centered about just tiring his opponent out to have a bigger gas tank. He will look for takedowns. Like he'll reach for some snatch singles around the pipe, but he's not Daniel Cormier getting takedowns at heavyweight. He'll catch a kick and try to like trip you over. He's got some, decent top control. He has a Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu black belt. He has 8 subs on his record. But he was also like quickly subbed by Sergey Spivak. So take that for what it's worth. Fortune is still, like, I was watching his like was it region? Yeah, it was like regional fights and stuff and PFL stuff. Like, he's still pretty fast on the feet. He throws mostly single strikes though. He avoids strikes with a lot of L step in. He's one of these guys that gets inside. He actually looks for uppercuts. He'll throw some thudding leg kicks, but he doesn't really set them up. He's been he's been hurt a lot and hurt kind of easily too. He will work in the clinch. That's where he likes to be. He's a good wrestler. You mentioned he's a D2 champion. He's a world team member in Greco-Roman, but that don't mean nothing to me. Nobody wrestles Greco-Roman, so it's not that hard to make if you do. But he like snatch singles. He's got good top control if he gets the fight to the ground. But for a guy who's a decorated wrestler, he's been taken down by lesser wrestlers. And if you take him down, he struggles to get off his back. So I think we have a back and forth fight. I want to go the other way. I think Tybura handles Fortune on the feet. I still think Tybura has an advantage on the feet. I think Fortune slows down. I think Tybura maybe overwhelms him a little bit with volume, and I actually think he's going to finish him. Give me Tybura by, I'll say second round TKO, but no confidence in my pick.
Next up on the UFC Seattle undercard is a lightweight matchup between Chase Hooper and Lance Gibson Jr. Hooper, the 26-year-old Washington State native, is 16-4-1 overall. He is 8-4 since joining the UFC as a veteran of season 2 of Dana White's Contender Series. He won on the Contender Series, was not immediately signed, but since being signed, 8-4, and heading into UFC 319 last August, he was on a 5-fight win streak and was on the verge of the top 10 in one of the deepest divisions in the UFC. It did not go well for him as Alexander Fernandes knocked him out in the first round. So he's looking to get back on the horse, confirm that at age 26, his best days are still ahead of him. In order to do any of those things, he will need to get past the fearless one. 31-year-old Canadian is 9-2 overall. 0-1 in the UFC. He, of course, spent most of his professional career as an up-and-coming prospect in Bellator. His father is Lance Gibson Sr., an early UFC veteran. His stepmom is Julia Budd, one of the greatest women fighters in history. The pedigree is there. The results were not there last December when he made his UFC debut and came out on the wrong end of a split decision against Bobby Green. So 2 lightweights here, again, looking to get back on the horse. Hooper is your favorite, Keith. What is the line?
Minus 220.
That is close enough for horseshoes. I got him down at minus 240, Gibson plus 200, but there were a couple of the more generous books that you could have found Hooper around minus 225. Tell me how you see this fight playing out. Is the real Hooper the guy that won 5 in a row, or is he the guy that got lamped by Fernandes? Give us your take on this one.
Yeah, this fight is, well, first of all, let's talk about Julia Budd for a second. You said she's one of the greatest female fighters ever. Yeah, she is. But when I feel bad, I feel like she's gonna be one of the forgotten people. 10 years from now, I think not maybe the naming oh, give me a top 20 female fighters. No one's gonna mention Julia Budd. And just because she's always in, she's making her way in, Bellator and Invicta and Strikeforce. She was never in the UFC. So, yeah, Lance Gibson, it's weird. I kind of forgot about him for a guy who's, he was obviously in Bellator for a really long time, and he was viewed as a really good prospect. And I kind of almost feel the same way about Tyrell Fortune coming in. They're almost you almost want them to have success for the Bellator's last hurrah kind of situation. I mean, Gibson's not a guy who went to PFL either. But then I always feel if these guys are representing Bellator, Hooper's the Contender Series guy. He represents the Contender Series, and he's still, for a guy who's been in the UFC a long time and has a hell of a lot of fights, he's still very young guy. I mean, how old is he? 20?
26.
Oh, he's all right, 26. So, okay, so he's all right. So he's closer to 30 now than he is 20. But
dude, without having it in front of me, he has to be in the top 10 all-time list of most fights in the UFC by this age. He's got 12 fights in the UFC.
Oh yeah, yeah. I mean, people coming in at 26, you're like, yeah, he's only 26, and he's not a good athlete. He's a southpaw. He definitely works best in his striking from distance. He has good output. His striking has really improved over the years. which, it's kind of hard to say after he's coming off a knockout, but from where he was, his hand speed improved. He's become more technical. He throws straight shots on the plate. He started adding power into his strikes. I mean, I always go back to like Barshoff. Like he knocked him out, which was impressive. Like you wouldn't have guessed that when Hooper first came in the UFC. Now he still threw out like some too much spinning stuff. We saw that against Anthony Hernandez. He still has some big defensive issues. Biggest thing is that he lacks head movement. He keeps his chin high in the air, and he's only 26. So it's always like, don't ever give up on a guy that young. But my worry is that he has taken a lot of damage for a guy who's only 26. I mean, he, like you said, he was just knocked out by Anthony Hernandez. He's been beaten up in a lot of other fights. He's an okay wrestler. He can shoot entries and he can get it down. And he has a great mindset to keep working to get to the fight. I like that. He's a really good grappler. Like he's good at creating scrambles and winning positions. He's got nice top control, slick back takes. He's very aggressive for the submission. He uses those like long arm and long legs to lock in submissions. He has a very like funky style of grappling. He's not he keeps his hips moving. He's not worried about losing position, trying to find a submission. I mean, he hit Jim Miller with a banana split, which is incredibly impressive. He can get submissions off his back. You put him there. He changed take some submission stems together off his back. Cardio and toughness is off the charts for this guy. Like he's just going to keep going. Gibson, it's hard to have a read on him because he was coming up Bellator, but he never like reached the peak of Bellator where he's facing like the top guys. And he's been on the regional scene, and he's definitely not a prospect anymore. I mean, what is he, like 30 something?
31.
31.
Just turned 31.
Funny because I think of him as a prospect because when he first arrived in Bellator, he was Lance Gibson's son. Yeah. He's a second generation fighter. He fights out of both stances. He's a bit of a brawler on the feet. He can get a little wild with the strikes, but he has good power. He will load up on a lot of strikes. He throws a lot of kicks, but he's been hurt in a lot of fights, which is concerning. But he's got good knees and elbows inside the clinch. He can wrestle. I like his entries. He advances position on the ground. He does need to improve his overall control. I like when he opens up ground and pound more than like controlling and looking for submissions. But he does have 3 subs on his record. I would be really surprised if he subbed Hooper. And Hoopers might have a hard time taking him down. He's a very physically strong guy, so I think the line is way off. I flip-flopped on this one. I think both guys have had moments of brilliance, moments where they've both looked terrible. Hooper's faced a better competition, though I think facing someone like Bobby Green and Lance Gibson the last fight, he lost, but it was competitive. I think that's a good experience for the guy. Hooper's longer obviously on the feet, and he's the better overall grappler. Gibson has the more power and the better wrestler. I think it's razor close. If one wins decisively, if one just runs through the other, I think it's Hooper. Like Hooper just like shows his levels to this. I'm gonna go the other way. I'm gonna go with a big upset. I'm gonna say it's super close. I like the wrestling. I like the physical strength. I think he could pin Hooper against the cage at times. Maybe it's my loyalty to those Bellator 2018 years guys. I'm gonna go Gibson. I'm gonna take a pretty big upset. I'm gonna say Gibson by split decision. I think it's my third split decision. I'll say Gibson by split decision.
Just a reminder to anybody watching out there, as of today, March 22nd, 2026, Cole Comrade is still just 41 years old. Come back and save us, buddy.
He could probably still be at least half the UFC's heavyweight roster right now.
I'd take him over Marcin Tybura or Tyrell Fortune this weekend after like a nice massage and a healthy dump, dude, just to get under 265.
It's weird. I picked Tybura to beat Fortune, but I would like Conrad's chances against Tybura more than against Fortune at this point in their career.
Yeah, I can see that. Yeah. I love the breakdown there, and I do like the idea of Hooper as kind of a poster boy for the especially for the early seasons of the Contender Series, where you could win and win convincingly and just not get signed because they were signing one person an episode. But he has matured under the bright lights in the way that we would hope. Like, he has his athleticism. Like, he's never going to be a great athlete, but he's refined the tools he does have just because he's now had 6 or 7 years that he's been able to train full time. You mentioned, and this is certainly something for folks' bingo cards, that he has progressed into his power years while we've been watching. He went from 20 to 26. Like, yeah, you 6 years older, training full time that whole time, sit down on your shots, you're going to have better power. Early in his UFC run, I thought of him as basically similar to Mickey Gall, like a good grappler who was not a good enough wrestler to get fights to the ground in the time, place, situation of his choosing, and whose striking was probably always going to be hampered by the fact that they were a poor athlete, even though they were actually pretty big for the division. Just smaller, more explosive fighters were always going to be able to get inside and punch him in the face. That turned out to be the correct scouting report on Gall. Hooper has grown past it, which is great to see. It's hard to slate Lance Gibson Jr. as anything other than a slight disappointment at this point. Like, he looked like somebody that eventually, whenever they moved him from the prelims to the main cards after the right amount of seasoning, would at least become a contender for a couple of years. But really, his loss to, I think it was Anatoly Tokov in Bellator, I think that was like their first time moving him up to a main card and like an actual decent fighter, because his first 5 fights in Bellator were against like the lowest of the low. And yeah, he's never completely out of his...
He got finished in 1 minute.
Yeah, and that's the thing. Like, he's had a couple of chances to kind of get the training wheels off at this point, but now he's a 31-year-old with 11 career fights. Like, he's not a prospect anymore. He might still improve, but he is what he is. It is heartening that he was as competitive as he was against Bobby Green, but that might be more down to Bobby Green. Like, Bobby Green is still a guy that will sometimes let an overmatched fighter hang around.
Just so I looked this up, after the Tokov fight, his next opponent, Sharon Spain, has a 22-51 record.
Okay, so he's going straight to the recycling center for some cans at that point.
He is coming off a win though. This Spain guy, he won his last fight.
We need to see him in the UFC now. If he was a light heavyweight, the UFC would have signed him now. I can see the routes to the upset for Gibson here, and hell, it would rewrite the book on his career if he gets the win here as a 2-1 underdog. I don't see it. I actually trust Hooper to keep Gibson on the outside until Hooper wants things to be up close so that he can look for a takedown. I think Hooper does this, and I think he probably makes it look kind of easy. Give me Chase Hooper to get a second round submission after kind of a tense first round, but second round, he hurts Gibson on the feet, he takes him down, and he finishes him.
So Ben, just don't count out Mr. Sharon Spain being on this card. He does fight out of the state of Washington, so it is possible he could get on this card.
Something that's worth noting, this is a backyard fight for both of these guys. Like, Chase Hooper's from Enumclaw, which is kind of a southeast suburb of Seattle, and then Lance Gibson is from...
How would you know that, man?
I learned it sometime. I probably talking to Devin Tejada, who's from Washington, who lives in Washington State, and then Lance Gibson Jr. is from Vancouver, which is of course just, right across the border to the north. Like, yeah, it's kind of a backyard fight for both of these guys, but yeah, give me Hooper to get it done in the backyard. Next up at UFC Seattle, and at least as the card is constituted as of the beginning of fight week, the top prelim is a lightweight matchup between Ignacio Bahamondes and Tofiq Musayev. Bahamondes, the 28-year-old Chilean by way of Chicago, is 17-6 overall. He is 6-3 since joining the UFC out of season 4 of the Contender Series. We saw him most recently last summer at UFC on ABC 8, where he came out on the wrong end of a unanimous decision against Rafael Fiziev. That snapped a 3-fight win streak for Bahamondes. He is stepping in here on short notice in place of Samuel Sanchez to try to get back into the win column against Musayev. 36-year-old from Azerbaijan, is 22-6 overall. He is 0-1 in the UFC. He made his UFC debut last June at the same UFC on ABC Hill versus Roundtree card after a long run in Ryzen with a few crossover matches in Bellator. But he made his UFC debut last June, got tapped out in the first round by Miktabek Arolbai. As I said, Musayev had been scheduled to take on Samuel Sanchez in this fight. Sanchez drops off, and the UFC, doing a man no favors, puts in a fringe contender in Bahamondes, who's hungry to get back in the win column on top of it. Bahamondes is your favorite, Keith. What do you think the line is?
Minus 250.
I'm going to call that close enough for government work, as Bahamondes is minus 300, Musayev plus 250 coming back. All right. Here's the thing. 3 years, I'd say three years ago would be perfect. Going into his fight in Bellator with Alexander Shabli, I would have said Tofiq Musayev might be the best lightweight outside the UFC right now anywhere. Like, I'm not saying he definitely was, but he's in the conversation for the best lightweight outside the UFC right now. I can't wait to either see him plug into PFL full time and see what he can do against guys like, Usman Nurmagomedov and Paul Hughes, or see him come to the UFC. He's come to the UFC at 35. He lost to Miktabek Arolbai in the first round. I still think Musayev is good. Like, there was a point where he was on like a 1,000,000 fight win streak and was getting to the point where he was actually beating some decent fighters in Ryzen, but we've seen him hit a ceiling against the very best of the best, and kind of has come up against what his opponents are good at. Like, he fought Roberto Satoshi in Ryzen. Satoshi's not a perfect fighter, but he's a great grappler, and he got tapped out fast. He fought Alexander Shabli in one of the Bellator Ryzen crossover fights. Shabli is an outstanding striker, and Shabli outstruck him for most of their fight and ended up finishing him with strikes. Then in the UFC, he runs into Miktabek Arolbai, and I think Arolbai might be the single most underrated guy in the UFC lightweight division right now. Like, his only loss at lightweight in the UFC was in that just wild barn burner against Mateusz Rebecki.
Yeah.
And
yeah,
Arolbai's a very good fighter. I still think Musayev is a very good fighter. And again, just getting no breaks at all. I didn't get into tape study for it, but I have the feeling I would have favored him comfortably against Samuel Sanchez. But against Bahamondes, it's another thing where Musayev is a jack of all trades, and even at 36, still a pretty good athlete, still pretty durable, but he's going to go against a guy in Bahamondes who's going to be much bigger, younger, and a guy that Bahamondes knows what he's good at. He knows what his best routes to victory are, and he's just a well-coached, intelligent fighter, despite being, young and probably still on his way up. Musayev's best routes to victory in this fight, even though he is a striker by preference, he's not a bad offensive wrestler. He could try to take Bahamondes down. Bahamondes, his takedown defense is always going to be slightly questionable just because he's a 6'3" lightweight that stands up straight and likes to kick a lot. Like, he's going to be there for people's takedowns, but if Musayev can't take him down, or if he can't even get in range to take him down, this is going to get ugly fast. It's going to be another case where Musayev's not a bad fighter, but when he runs into a better fighter, it's just like running face first into a wood chipper. And that's what I kind of see here. Like, Musayev will probably try to have that middle to outside distance kickboxing battle, because that's what he actually does well at, but just Bahamondes is going to be so much better at it. And Bahamondes is a harder hitter on a shot-for-shot basis. I don't think he's going to like what he gets there, what he gets in that position. And if he tries to close the distance, I think he's going to just run into the full arsenal of Bahamondes in close, like clinch type weapons. I think Bahamondes probably just knees this man to death in the first round in the clinch. That's my pick. Bahamondes knockout late first round.
Yeah, first of all, I think I feel like Bahamondes could obviously dominate. If one guy dominates the other one, I would feel like Bahamondes. But that said, I still think the line's off. Like like they both could be true. And I think Musayev is like you said is better than what if he loses this fight, what his record in the UFC would suggest.
Mhm.
And damn, it sucks your opponent drops out and you get a much harder opponent. Bahamondes, I mean, he's a very good athlete. He's massive for the weight class. He likes to switch stances a lot. He's a good striker, great output on the feet. Likes to march down his opponents. He's a fairly technical striker. He what I like about him, he likes to like grab at his opponent's hands and find his range with hand fighting. I love hand fighting. I think maybe that's the wrestler in me that I think it's something that underutilized in MMA. He's a bit of a sniper. He's accurate. His step back right hand is his best shot. I mean, he dropped Manuel Torres with it a bunch of times before finishing him with it. He will brawl a little bit instead of keeping his range, which doesn't benefit him. He can overthrow his shots in those positions and kind of wing overhands. But when he's from distance, he's got a lot of variety in strikes. He goes to the body a lot. He's got nice power. He does do a little too much spinning attacks for my liking, but great stepping knees, as you said. Good kicking game overall, especially from distance. Got good teep kicks. He likes to kick the inside of the leg, which is obviously effective, but also is a little dangerous because a lot of times guys kick the inside leg, they hit the grind, so that's a little worrisome. Got a great high kick. I mean, crush Christos Giagos with a high kick. He tries to fade back high kick, like he'll fade out and throw a high kick at the end of it, which is a little wild. Not much of an offensive wrestler. He does have like tall man's defensive wrestling where he try to take him down, he kind of reigns over you, kind of lunges over you, and he's strong on the ground. He's got the long legs that he uses well with his BJJ. Not the best defensive wrestler, but like good movement up on it. He swept Rongzhu when he was taken down. He'll throw up submissions, triangles, arm bars while on his back. He can get it. He me some Jalen Turner with a triangle off his back. He will jump guillotine, which is concerning, but he's got a good one. He likes head attacks with those long arms. He looks for Darce chokes, and he's got good cardio. Musayev, like I said, I agree. I think he's much better than you would think. He's a well-rounded fighter, good striker, nice volume on the feet. Technically sound striker, accurate, attacks with combinations. He has good power. I mean, he's got 18 TKOs. Loves kicks. He's a really good switch kicker. Does a lot of switch kicking, a lot of teep kicks. Can sneak in a takedown, but I definitely wouldn't say that's like his go-to game plan. But he's hard to take down. Now he was quickly subbed by Miktabek Orobai, but again, I agree with you. I think that has more to say about Orobai than necessarily about Musayev. I think this fight is. I don't want to say it's a tough fight to pick, but I give Musayev a much better chance than this line suggests. And that's because I like both guys. I have flip-flopped a little bit, but because of the kicks, because of the knees, because of the size, I am going with Bahamondes. I think he lands the hardest shots. He may hurt Musayev. I don't think he's going to be able to put him out. Give him Bahamondes by decision.
The 6-fight main card of UFC Fight Night 271 begins with a lightweight clash between Terrance McKinney and Kyle Nelson. McKinney, the 31-year-old from Eastern Washington, is 17-8 overall. He is 7-5 since joining the UFC as a veteran of Season 3 of Dana White's Contender Series. He's coming in off a loss. He fought most recently at UFC 323 last December, where he got tapped out in the first round by Chris Duncan. That snapped a 2-fight win streak for him. He's going to look to start up a new win streak at the expense of Nelson. 34-year-old Canadian is 17-6-1 overall. He is 5-5-1 in the UFC. He's coming in off a win. He fought last October at UFC Fight Night DeRitter versus Allen, winning a unanimous decision over Matt Frevola. And he has, in fact, kind of turned a corner and won 4 of his last 5. It belies his 500 record in the UFC. He's actually been on a good run the last 2 or 3 years. Keith, your favorite here is -170, underdog +140. Who are they?
I'm gonna guess McKinney's the favorite.
You are correct. Terrance McKinney -170, Kyle Nelson +140. Keith, at this point, Terrance McKinney has 12 fights in the UFC. He's been in the UFC for going on 5 years now. In his 7 wins, he has never been past the midpoint of the first round.
Okay. Yeah.
His longest fight in a victory is 2 minutes and 17 seconds. He has 25 career fights. He has been to the third round once. I need to frame the question properly, but he's going to break some sort of record. I need to write out the math equation. But like the lowest average fight time of somebody with more than 10 fights in UFC history, I'm sure he is all over that record. Like all of your records based on fighting like you are parked illegally, like belong to Terrance McKinney.
Yeah.
Okay, I mean,
the only guy that I would think, how many fights did you say had to be?
I'd say more than 10.
Okay, yeah, I don't know if he had more than 10. The only guy I think that would have fit in that category would be like Shane Carwin, but I don't think he had 10 fights.
Yeah, I mean, I'd have to take a look at that.
Yeah, I know the Brock Lesnar fight went into the second, but I think that was it. I think all the other fights, and there might be one I'm forgetting about. I mean, this just off the top of my head, and I don't think he had 10 fights either.
If Todd Duffy got to 10 fights in the UFC, he'd be up there because he's another. Yeah, but I mean, McKinney, it's not even live by the sword, die by the sword, because a sword can take a while. He's like live by the chainsaw, die by the chainsaw. And when we see him lose, I'm sure he would get tired if he went to the. Oh no,
it really is by live by the sword, die by the sword. He's the main character fighting the random guys in the army, random soldiers, not the other, like you watch Game of Thrones. It's not like the good guy versus the bad guy and they have the big long sword fight. It's like all the in between people, they just swing him one time dead, one time dead, one time dead, like you don't see the main character going back and forth with just some nobody who knows who he is.
It's like an early Jackie Chan movie where he's in like a bar and like 20 guys line up to fight him one by one. That'd be the perfect use for Terrance McKinney. And I'm sure that if he went to the third round in any one of his fights, he would gas out worse than we've ever seen a fighter that light and that talented gas out. But no, when he loses, he also loses in the first round or early in the second. And it's just because he's so incredibly defensively porous. He's the equivalent of a basketball team that does the run and gun, where they don't even try to defend or grab defensive rebounds. They just shoot and start running back up the court, and all their games are like 130 to 120. Terrance McKinney, the run and gun of MMA, which is going to make it interesting to see him against Nelson, because Nelson thrives over a 3-round fight. This is a very much a 2 true outcomes fight. Like, it sounds simplistic to say, and I sound like all the so-called betting experts that I shit on every weekend, but here's one where just looking at the raw numbers really does tell you the story. Sure. If this fight goes more than 3 minutes, Nelson's probably gonna win. If it goes under 3 minutes, it's almost certainly McKinney winning. Just the question is, which way do you lean? And I'm calling the upset here. Nelson, I mean, Nelson can get caught and blasted early. Like he lost to Steve Garcia by first round knockout like less than 2 years ago. Here's the thing. Garcia,
that's a different level fighter right now than McKinney is.
No, that's exactly where I'm going with this. Thank you.
Okay.
It's not the same as getting knocked out in the first round by Terrance McKinney, because if you go back and watch that fight, the interesting thing about it is, even though Garcia knocked him out in under 4 minutes, you see a complete game plan by Garcia. Like, he is setting things up that he uses to catch Nelson late in the first round.
Yeah.
Like, he might have been, like, Garcia was fighting for the first round knockout, but not just by running straight out like he was shot out of a cannon and just throwing the kitchen sink at him. Garcia fought a smart, disciplined game plan and drew Nelson out and, and wrecked him. That's not what McKinney does. Like, McKinney's going to run straight out, either throw like a head kick or a flurry of haymakers, try a double leg that's basically just like whether the punches or kick land or not, he's already going into a double leg that's more just bowl him over with momentum than real technique. And when that takedown attempt creates a scramble, he's either going to try for a back take or to like snap up a power guillotine and finish him with a topside guillotine. Like that's what Terrance McKinney's going to do. If it works, my pick is dead wrong. I'm saying it doesn't work, that Nelson knows what McKinney's going to do. And if he has the physical wherewithal as a okay athlete at 155 to get out of the way of that freight train, it's Nelson's fight to lose. Give me Nelson by second round TKO here.
Yeah. McKinney fights like, and again, I know I've been watching a lot of NCAA wrestling this past weekend, but he fights like a guy who's down by a takedown and there's 20 seconds left on the clock. And then, you know, Joe goes, oh, here comes the sprint. And then you just get out setting things up. You just going, shoot, takedown, just rushing everything. That's how he fights.
Yeah.
As far as a breakdown goes, dude, I'm not even going to bother saying anything. Everything you said is exactly what my notes said. Like about both guys, about, you know, McKinney, I think I've told you the story before, but I have two sisters, and my oldest sister, I think the only time she's ever watched fights with me, and I don't know why. I still don't remember much. I remember watching, and I'm going way back, man. Phil Baroni versus Evan Tanner.
Ooh.
And I remember sitting there watching the fights with my oldest sister. And, you know, we're going back, you know, we're having fun. She's like, oh, who you got? And I go, well, I'll make a bet with you. I go, give me, I will take this New York guy for 2.5 minutes. I don't care what happens. It gets to the halfway part of the first round. I don't care how bad that guy's beating the shit out of the guy. I'll switch the other guy. And Phil Baroni put it on Evan, beat the piss out of him until about 2.5 minutes. And I go, okay, I got the other guy now. And you see Phil Baroni just getting tired, and then Tanner like clinching him and kneeing him in the body and doing all it, you know, and taking over. And I remember him dropping the elbows on him and everything. I feel the same way about this fight. Your breakdown was perfect. Like I'm just going to save us time, and we have a consensus upset pick. We even have the method. I think McKinney's going to come out like a bat out of hell. I think Nelson's smart enough. He's going to avoid those big shots. He might clinch. He might try to tie him down. He might wrestle. He might give up a takedowns against McKinney, and that's okay. And then McKinney's going to gas out, or he's. Yeah, I've kind of accused him of being a front runner, and I think he's going to take. You know, he's going to beat him with volume, beat him with his clinch game, work him. I think one thing Nelson does well is he punches the body a lot. I think we can see some body shots against McKinney, trying to slow him down that way. I think he's eventually going to break down McKinney. Give me Nelson by second round TKO. But again, if we are wrong, it's going to be brutally wrong. It's going to be McKinney high kicked them in 25 seconds, and wow, everyone's going crazy. Look at the guy that McKinney is, and everyone gets all excited about him, and then he loses his next fight.
Yeah, man. Thinking back to the Baroni fight, because you know both of his fights with Tanner were in 2004, so you know within a year or two of when I really started watching MMA seriously at all, like Baroni was the guy that introduced me to the concept that just because a guy is shredded doesn't mean he has good cardio. Like, you know, just I would always assume, well, he looks like he's in better shape.
Sure. Yeah. Before that was like Mark Coleman, the Mark Coleman, Maurice Smith one was the one that like, oh my god, the more jack guy doesn't automatically win. Yeah,
and is looking tired, and yeah,
and the Pete Williams one is the one that really reminded everybody.
Like, don't bend forward to catch your breath. Well, there's a guy with wrestling shoes standing in front of you.
I know, with the wrestling shoes. Not only that, he lines up sideways, and you could see it. Like that would never happen in today's event. Like everyone would see the sign saying like, he's about to throw a high kick. It's like he was lining up like my son was playing soccer the other day, and they ended up going to a shootout, and they lined up to like kick the like my
Yeah,
son.
where you get at an angle and you take 3 steps. No, that's,
Yeah,
that's basically what.
yeah, or like a field goal. Yeah. It's like my son's lining up to do his kick. Like that's what like Pete Williams did. Like he didn't like throw 2 punches and then throw a high kick. He just like lined his body up. Like, okay, high kick. No, look like if I was at like Sports Authority. There was a every once in a while like I'm by myself and there's like a kickboxing bag and I just line myself up and freaking kick that thing. Pete Williams.
I think Pete still lives in Dallas. I want to dig him up and see if he'll do a Where Are They Now interview.
Where are they now, Pete Williams?
Yeah.
Actually, see, that's the stuff that intrigues me.
I know. Like, those are some of my favorite interviews of yours.
But we're old, dude.
Yeah.
Are we still? Are we gonna keep this in? I'll give you.
I'm going to leave it in. Yeah,
I
I'm
am.
going to leave it in.
You know how old I am?
How old?
The other day, we get these like flyers from like the town, and there's like one like once a year or once a quarter or something. They send one about the rec, like the local rec center. And the different programs they have, all the kids programs and everything. Then they have like the adults programs. And I was looking at different ones and I go, pickleball. And I'm like, honey, we should join a pickleball league. And then I'm like, holy shit. Am I in that age where I'm like, honey, let's join a pickleball league together? And then I realized I was really old because the next day I was like, so did you sign us up? Like, we're gonna do this? Sounds fun. And I'm like, oh God, like we could join a pickleball league. It's gonna be I'm gonna be playing pickleball with like 65-year-old men. And it sounds like a great time.
Oh. Like, this is how old I am. It bothers me.
Hold on. How do you go from McKinney, athlete of athletes, to me talking about pickleball? Anyways, okay, all right, let me hear how old you are.
I'm old enough that when they talk about the football coach Jim Mora, it bothers me every time because I'm like, Jim Mora Jr.
Oh, Jim Mora Jr. yeah, not the old Saints coach. Remember?
Like, I remember Jim Mora Sr. You can't just
yeah.
When you say Jim Mora, I'm like, playoffs, you know?
Yeah.
Next up at UFC Seattle is a middleweight matchup between Mansur Abdul-Malik and Yousri Belgaroui. Abdul-Malik, the 28-year-old Marylander training out of Las Vegas, is 9-0-1 as a professional. He's 2-0-1 since joining the UFC out of Season 8 of Dana White's Contender Series. He fought most recently last December at UFC 323, where he tapped out Antonio Tricoli in 1 minute and 9 seconds. He's going to look to extend his undefeated record, continue to certify himself a future contender in this division against New England's finest, Yousri Belgaroui. The 33-year-old Dutchman, by way of Connecticut, is 9-3 overall. He is 1-0 since joining the UFC as a 2-time veteran of the Contender Series. He lost on Season 7, won on Season 8, and made his UFC debut last October at UFC Fight Night DeRitter versus Allen, where he knocked out Azamat Bekoyev in the third round. The line's pretty close on this one, so I'll quiz you on it, Keith. Your favorite is -120. Underdog plus 100. Who are they?
Abdul-Malik's the favorite.
You are correct. Mansur Abdul-Malik -120. Yousri Belgaroui even money plus 100. I'm going to flip this to you. I mean, you have been notably kind of more of a tap the brakes on Mansur Abdul-Malik guy than I have. I feel, as you know, through his 3 UFC fights so far. Tell me if you're coming around at all and what we learn about these guys, if anything, on Saturday.
Like, there's definitely a lot of things I like about him. I mean, he's really smashed the competition so far in the UFC. The problem is like the problem breaks is like he beat Dusko Torovic, he beat Nick Klein, he beat Antonio Trocoli, he fought Cody Bredich. I mean, that is the absolute bottom of the barrel of the UFC. So, and how do I say this guy's name? Belgaroui,
yeah.
Yeah, I apologize if I'm saying his name wrong, but
those Connecticut names are tricky. Yeah.
There's definitely a step up in competition for both guys, really. I'll give him he's huge middleweight, he's a big, jacked guy. He likes to switch stances a lot. He does need to improve his volume. He sometimes he won't let his hands go enough, but when he does, he's got a nice crisp jab. He can be a little wild, throwing a lot of hooks, but he hits very hard. I mean, just look at the guy. Like you expect him to hit hard. Nice kicking game. He likes to work from space. He hates being pressured. So he either wants to be all the way out on the outside striking, or he wants to be in wrestling. He's a good wrestler. He's a former college wrestler. He likes body lock takedowns. But like his wrestling is good, but it's what he does when he gets the fight down that's really good. He's got some scary ground and pound. Some of the scariest I've seen. I mean, so like I guess I'm a little lower on him, but like there's a lot of things I really like. I mean, he smashed Todorovic with ground and pound, and then he showed submission skills against Charkley in his last fight, winning by first round submission. He has gassed out in the past, but I think that's probably because of how big he is. If he can get his weight control under what am I trying to say? Like under, I don't know what the fuck I'm trying to say, but it gets it under control. I should say that's what I was trying to say. Belgaroui, I mean, we talk about how big Abdul-Malik is. Belgaroui is even bigger. I mean, this guy's like Alex Pereira big. He's huge. He's 6'5", obviously an extremely experienced kickboxer. He's fought Adesanya. He's fought Alex Pereira, so he's on that same pedigree. Obviously, not the same success that those guys have in MMA, but you get the background. He's a sharp striker. He could be really special in striking. He does need to improve his output, but he's got one of the best jabs in the game. He follows with straight shots. He's got a great straight right. He loves his step back right counter. He has massive power. He will toss in some Superman punches, which is fun, but might not be what he wants to do against a wrestler. You don't want to give Malik a chance to close the distance or really close the distance for him. He will get inside and he starts like his punches turn into elbows in close quarters, which is fun to see. He's got some good stepping knees. He will go flying knee too, mean calf kicks. He will avoid strikes by cutting angles really well. I like that. He won't offensive wrestle at all, and he's a bad defensive wrestler. But he showed improved takedown defense against Bakayev in his last fight. And despite getting taken down, he has that little bit of like the Alex Pereira, I'm big, I can push myself back up, get up game. So I actually think this is my favorite fight on the card. I think both guys are good prospects. Obviously, Abdul-Malik is a better record than Belgaroui does. I say Abdul-Malik does take Belgaroui down, does his work, but I think eventually Belgaroui is going to work back to his feet. I thought the line was going to be big for Abdul-Malik based on his record, and I thought I was going to take a big upset. I'm going to go with an upset. I'm going to say Belgaroui lands a big shot. I think Abdul-Malik's going to go out. I'm going to say Belgaroui catches him in the second round TKO.
Nice. For the record, I am not off the Mansur Abdul-Malik bandwagon. But having said that, it is another unanimous upset pick. In fact, that makes 2 unanimous upset picks in a row on this card for us. Just because, well, really, you laid out the reasons. Like Mansur Abdul-Malik has overwhelming physicality, and to his credit, even this early in his career, he knows what he's good at and does put himself in his best position to win. But his gas tank is suspect, and that's partly due to his physical bulk, and I think that's partly due to his style. Like your cardiovascular endurance, it's a function, 1, of the size of your gas tank, and 2, of how hard you're stepping on the pedal. And both his wrestling and his striking just tend to be kind of high amplitude stuff that I think no matter how he was built would probably tax his cardio earlier rather than later in fights. I could see Abdul-Malik having good success early. I could see him just getting a massive slam takedown in the first 90 seconds of this fight and having Belgaroui basically like fighting for his life on the ground. But if he survives that early onslaught, I like his chances better and better as we go along. You called the second round TKO. I could see it making all the way to the third, but just when that second round dawns and Malik's punches are just that much slower. His entries are that much slower, because when his entries slow down, that's when he's going to start running into Belgaroui's kind of short range weapons that you laid out there. I do think it's Abdul-Malik shooting right into a knee or something like that starts things rolling downhill, but make it unanimous. As of right now, at least, this is an upset pick. I've got Belgaroui by second round TKO as well. Next up on the UFC Seattle main card is a featherweight matchup between Julian Erosa and Lerryan Douglas. Erosa, the 36-year-old Washington State native, is 31-12 overall. He is 9-8 across 3 separate stints in the UFC. He joined the UFC first as part of season 22 of The Ultimate Fighter, was subsequently cut, then rejoined the UFC through season 2 of Dana White's Contender Series, was cut once again, joined it most recently as a COVID era late replacement, and third time was the charm. He is 8-4 in the UFC this time around, and he was on a 3-fight win streak heading into his last appearance last May against Melquizael Costa. He came out on the wrong end of a unanimous decision against Costa, so lost some momentum, needs to get back in the win column, and he's going to be facing a debuting opponent in Douglas. 30-year-old Brazilian is 13-5 overall. He is the outgoing LFA featherweight champ, and he won on the Contender Series last September, knocking out Cam Teague in just 36 seconds, which, as you know, is pretty much a guaranteed contract at this point on the Contender Series. Keith, Douglas is your favorite. And because I'm asking you, you know he's at least a minus 200 favorite. Yeah. Take a guess at what the line is.
I hope it's not much bigger than that. 225.
Lerryan Douglas minus 280. Julian Erosa plus 240.
When will they realize that Julian Erosa is good?
I don't know, because here's the thing. Lerryan Douglas, he's not a prospect. He's a 30-year-old who has been a good regional guy for years and years, finally strung together like 4 or 5 straight wins in LFA, won the LFA title, and then got a just fantastic, sensational, lights out knockout on the Contender Series, and kind of wended his way to the UFC that way. But I mean, I've seen him fight a few times in LFA, and even when he was getting first round knockouts, I was like, oh, this guy's pretty good. Julian Erosa is going to be such a step up in competition for him. And here's the thing. Erosa is a live by the sword, die by the sword guy. He's a guy that is susceptible to getting knocked out in the first round. Like, he's hyper aggressive. He has some bad habits defensively. And while he is a durable guy, he demonstrably can get caught and get starched by a hard shot early. I mean, it's barely 2-3 years ago that Fernando Padilla clocked him with basically a one-punch knockout. But he also just went 15 minutes with Melqui Costa, who is trying to knock you out with one punch for the entire duration of the fight. Like, there's nothing that Douglas brings that Erosa has not seen many, many times. So if you think Douglas should be a minus, or should be an almost 3-1 favorite here, it's basically a statement that you think Erosa is falling off. And I don't really see any indication that that's the case. And if it's not, then yeah, Douglas has the puncher's chance. He definitely is a guy who's aggressive, comes in early, like does a couple of feints and starts throwing his best shots. Erosa can do that to him just as easily. Like, if you climbed out of your time machine and said, hey, I'm back from Saturday night, this thing was over in 90 seconds, I give it 50-50 that Erosa or Douglas was the winner. But the longer the fight goes, the more Erosa's more diverse offensive skill set and just greater experience against better foes comes into play. Because on top of everything else, Erosa's a fantastic submission artist, and he's a quick strike submission artist. Like, he's a guy that could catch Douglas coming in and just do a standing guillotine and choke him out in 90 seconds. Like, he's done that to people. I don't get the line And this is one of the ones where I'm calling the upset, and I don't even feel like I'm calling a big upset, even though on paper it is. So I'm either going to learn something big on Saturday and be like, oh, okay, yeah, Douglas was that guy, or Erosa isn't anymore. But if the fight goes like I expect, it's going to be a wild first 3 or 4 minutes. But once these guys settle in any way, I think Erosa has most of the advantages. Give me Julian Erosa by second round submission.
Yeah, I was sitting here looking at Julian Erosa's record since he's returned to the UFC. Back in 2020, he has 8 wins.
8-4. He's 8-4 this time. Yep.
Yeah. Of those 8 wins, he was the underdog in 6 of them. Sean Woodson plus 350 underdog. Nate Landwehr plus 110. I mean, technically underdog, but Charles Jourdain plus 155. Hakeem Dowdadu plus 185. Ricardo Ramos plus 140. Christian Rodriguez plus 205. That's like, this guy is always counted out. And
and Ramos and Rodriguez, he guillotined both in the first round. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, he's the man. I think I'm higher on Douglas than you are. I understand why you guys fight in the regional scene, but Erosa, I mean, I feel we've broken down this guy so many times. I mean, he's big for the weight class. He's long and lanky. He's got like a 76-inch reach. He loves switching stances. He has great output. Some of the most insane output I've seen, especially recently. Just doesn't stop fighting for a single second. He has beaten. I just read 6 guys that he was underdogs. He's beaten more talented fighters than he is just because of his output. He loves to battle in the pocket and brawl. Which might not be the best idea because he's taken an ungodly amount of damage. He's been hurt in so many fights, and he's been knocked out. And I know Costa had a lot of success for him, but he went like it was a battle. So, but generally speaking, I am still concerned about his durability. But he's got a big kicking game, good teep kicks. He's a solid wrestler. He's a bad defensive wrestler. He's been taken down a bunch. I mean, even Darren Hell gets in a fight that he was absolutely murdering him and still took him down. He makes matters worse by jumping guillotine. But like you said, he's got a great guillotine. I mean, he's a Rodriguez, he's a Ramos with it. He will look for subs off his back instead of scrambles to the feet, so that's concerning. But his cardio is his weapon. I mean, he will not stop bringing it. And I mean, he's really turned into one of my favorite fighters. Now, Douglas, or Douglas, however you say it, I think I like what I see on film better than you do. He's good striking, very patient with the striking, almost too patient. He needs to improve his output, especially against Julian Erosa. Julian Erosa he'll beat you with just volume. He throws way too many single strikes, but I think maybe a guy like that is the guy that will have to, you're gonna have to pick up the output because he's just gonna be in your face. But he's a pressure counter striker. When he's pressuring, he does need to learn how to cut off the cage better. But he throws some hard hooks. I love his left hook. He really springs into his shots. He's got good power. He does avoid strikes by pillaring. Not much of an offensive wrestler, but he is a solid defensive wrestler, hard to take down. This line is way off. I mean, just the history of Erosa. I think this is one of the hardest fights to pick. I like Douglas' skill and I like his power, but Erosa's our kind of guy. His output is hard for anybody to handle. I think I'm going to surprise you with this. We do not have a third consensus upset pick. I think Douglas is that guy. I some of the things I saw on tape I really like. I think both guys gotta have their moments. I know Erosa showed durability against Costa, but I'm gonna say Douglas puts him out. I think he's gonna catch him with something coming in. Give me Douglas to have a spectacular win in his UFC debut. Give me Douglas by second round knockout.
All right. Third from the top at UFC Fight Night 271 is the declared retirement fight of longtime UFC contender, current UFC commentator, and Washington State hero Michael Chiesa against short notice foe Nico Price. Chiesa, the 38-year-old from Spokane. So, I mean, he is at least from the opposite end of Washington, but nonetheless, 19-7 overall, 14-7 since joining the UFC as the runner-up of season 15 of The Ultimate Fighter. He's 14-7 in the UFC. He is 7-3 since moving up to welterweight. He started his run in the UFC as a really, really big lightweight. He's still pretty big at welterweight, and he's on a 3-fight win streak dating back 2 full years. He fought most recently last June at UFC on ESPN Usman versus Buckley, where he picked up a unanimous decision over Court McGee. He had been scheduled to take on Carlston Harris this weekend. Harris dropped off the card, and on about a week's notice, in steps Price. The 36-year-old Floridian is 16-10 with 2 no contests overall. He is 8-10 with 2 no contests in the UFC, and his momentum is basically the opposite. He's lost 3 straight and 5 of his last 6 dating back over 3 years at this point. He fought most recently just a month ago at UFC Fight Night Bautista versus Oliveira, where he got pounded out in the first round by Nikolai Veretennikov. He might be fighting for his job, but who knows at this point. Keith, Chiesa is your favorite. Take a guess at what the line is. You know that it is not greater than minus 600. You know that it is greater than minus 200.
Minus 475.
Chiesa, minus 550. Price plus 400. I don't know what the line was going to be for Chiesa against Harris, but I have the feeling Chiesa was going to be the favorite, but Harris much closer than minus 550 plus 400. Here's the thing. Even at his best, and Michael Chiesa is not at his best at this point, even if he's won his last 3, even at his absolute best, Chiesa was a guy with excellent offensive weapons, but who has always been susceptible to his opponent's offense, even in his own wheelhouse. Like, Chiesa has been one of the most dynamic and enjoyable grapplers to watch in the UFC for his entire run since he joined, all the way back from Tough 15. He's always been a blast to watch on the ground. We've seen him absolutely big brother some good ground fighters within the last few years. Like, I mean, he did things to Neil Magny and Diego Sanchez with one hand that usually takes a good grappler 2 hands to do. Like, he literally put Sanchez in a hammerlock like he was arresting him on the ground. Like, but at the same time, we've seen Chiesa get out grappled and tapped out by guys who are not thought of as like his level of grappler. That's it. Because of that, there was more upset potential when it was Harris versus Chiesa, because Harris had a few things he could have done. Harris is probably even taller, longer, lankier than Chiesa and is a harder hitter on a shot-for-shot basis. And then Harris is a good grappler himself. So there would have been upset potential all over it just because Chiesa has those defensive lapses. There's less of that with Price because Nico Price is about as shot as I've seen a fighter in the UFC at this point. It's kind of wild that he is the younger man in this fight by almost 2 full years, because in terms of just his physical durability, his athleticism, it feels like he's 10 years older than Chiesa. Like, Chiesa's retiring here, but it's worth noting that Chiesa's on a 3-fight win streak. And yeah, it's a 3-fight win streak over guys who are also in the last gasp of their careers. But I mean, Price used to be a standout athlete for the division. He's now an average athlete for the division. He's still a hard hitter, but he doesn't throw the volume he used to. Like, he used to be just a stand in there, blood and guts until one guy falls down type fighter back when he was kind of going against the Brandy Browns, Jeff Neals, Vicente Luques of the world. He's not that guy anymore. He can't keep a pace for 3 rounds. He doesn't have the durability. Like, his only 2 wins, Nico Price's only 2 wins in the UFC in the last 5 years are over Alex Morono and Alex Oliveira. And I like Oliveira as a fighter, and I love Alex Morono as a person, but they were both even more shop-worn than Price at the time they fought. Like, yeah, this feels like a pretty easy fight to call. It's just a question of whether it makes it to the final horn. And considering again that Price fought like a month ago and looked terrible, I don't think it makes it to the end. Chiesa's always had kind of surprisingly good punching power to me. I think he probably starts stinging Price on the feet. Chiesa's kind of awkward, gawky, like reach for the ankle or reach for the standing knee tap type takedowns, I think will probably work against Price if he wants to. And once he's on the ground, his offensive grappling against Price's defensive grappling is a horrible mismatch. Give me Michael Chiesa by first round submission here.
So, being that this is Michael Chiesa's last fight, I mean, if we believe him, I actually do believe him. I mean, he's got a lot of opportunities outside outside the cage with the UFC.
Mm-hmm.
Do you think he's going to be in my pickleball league? If he is, I'm not going to argue. I'm not going to argue inbound and out of bounds with him. It's good to see someone retire while they're not completely shot. Now, obviously, he's in decline, and but he has shown that he has some game left in him. He's up there in age. He's got a tons of injuries. He's a southpaw, very unorthodox style to his striking. Throws a bunch of looping punches. He doesn't strike as not that he was never really known for striking, but he also doesn't throw many strikes anymore. Like his vibe has really dropped. He telegraphs his shots. His hand speed is bad. All of his striking has always been to kind of force the opponents back towards the cage, so it gives them a chance to shoot on their legs. Besides his offensive striking, the thing that concerns me more is his reaction to strikes. He's not reacting well when he gets hit. He doesn't check leg kicks. I mean, I know it was forever ago, but I was thinking about when RDA just murdered him with leg kicks. He's a grappler. When he gets close to shooting range, he will shoot immediately. His entries aren't great, but his long arms kind of make up for it. He gets the legs with his long arms. He's very physically strong. If he wraps around your legs, he's gonna pick you up and take you down. He will also use his size well in the clinch and grind in the clinch. Got some like trip takedowns in there. If he a lot of his takes, he'll just get a scramble going. He's good at winning. He has a very funky style wrestling game. Obviously, he's a submission threat. I think he's got like 11 or 12 subs on his record. He submitted so many guys. I mean, I think like Kevin Holland and Vicente Luque and stuff. He is open to. Wait a minute. I said he submitted. No, Luque caught him. I'm sorry.
Yeah, but like tapped out Condit, tapped out.
Yeah, I don't know why I thought like you.
Dude, he tapped out Beneil Dariush. Like a literal world-class grappler. Yeah.
Yeah. So, he got Darce choked by that's like one of his Achilles heel, like is that he has been caught in Darce chokes. Nico Price, I mean, whatever. We broke this guy down a million times. He's still big for the weight class. He used to be a good athlete, but that has really declined. He can't handle pressure like he used to. I was thinking like Jeff Neal and Vicente Luque just murdered him just with their pressure alone. He works best from distance. His hand speed has really dropped. He's kind of slow now. He does throw a long jab, and he still has some power. I mean, he's a big guy. He tries to be controlled, but you can bring him into a brawl. He will give a shot to land one of his own. The problem is his defense is bad. He's always been super tough, but his durability has really faded over the year. He's been stopped in 4 of his last 6 fights. When he has been stopped, when he hasn't been stopped, he's also been hurt in a bunch of fights. He'll close the distance and he'll try to use his size in the clinch, busy with his dirty boxing with knees and elbows and inside, using his height well to kind of get to good angles. Not much of an offensive wrestler. He's a bad defensive wrestler. I mean, tons of guys have taken him down. He has, he can catch submissions. He will scramble and try to get out of bad positions. He used to be pretty good at getting off the bottom, but he really struggles with it now. And besides his durability fighting, his gas tank it empties really quick now. this is an easy fight to pick. Chiesa ain't losing his last fight at home against Nico Price. That ain't happening. I'd be shocked. Even though, Chiesa's up there in age and he can collapse overnight, it don't matter. He's going to take Price down immediately. I think he's going to sell him quickly. I'm with you. I'm taking Chiesa by first round submission.
That brings us to the co-main event of UFC Fight Night 271, a women's flyweight contenders matchup between Alexia Grasso and Maycee Barber. Grasso, the 32-year-old Mexican, is 16-5-1 overall. She is 8-5-1 since joining the UFC as a high-level strawweight contender in Invicta, 8-5-1 in the UFC, 5-2-1 since moving up to flyweight, a run that saw her win the title in a shocking upset over Valentina Shevchenko almost exactly 3 years ago. Since that career-defining win over Shevchenko, rougher sledding. She has a draw and a loss to Shevchenko and then a loss to Natalia Silva in her most recent outing, which was last August at UFC 315. So if Grasso wants to hold on to any relevance in the immediate title picture, she definitely needs the win here. Meanwhile, her opponent still feels like she's on the way up. Barber, 27-year-old Colorado native, is 15-2 overall. She's 10-2 since joining the UFC out of season 2 of Dana White's Contender Series. She's on a 7-fight win streak, including her most recent appearance last December at UFC 323, where she won a unanimous decision over Karine Silva. Barber looking for her 8th straight win, looking perhaps for the one that will clinch her that elusive title shot. Keith, your favorite is -170, your underdog +140. Who are they?
I'm going to say Barber is the favorite.
You are correct. Maycee Barber, -170. Alexia Grasso, +140. So, Keith, there are two notions here. There's the notion that Maycee Barber is going to be the youngest champ in UFC history, and there is the notion that Maycee Barber is a bust and overrated. The truth is clearly somewhere in between.
Yeah.
And worth noting that Barber is 7-0 since her last loss, which happened to be against Grasso just a little over 5 years ago. I'm interested in your take on this fight because usually I have a general idea of what you're going to point out and what you're going to pick. I do not know where you're going with this one, so I'm flipping this one to you.
Okay. Yeah. All right. This is a really intriguing fight. I mean, you could actually make an argument that based on rankings and positional relevance that this fight could be the main event. Now, I know it's not going to be with Israel Adesanya.
It's not going to be, but the winner of this fight is closer to a title shot than the winner of Adesanya versus Pfeiffer.
Yeah. Well, Adesanya gets a little privilege. The winner should be closer than and actually, Pfeiffer is a boy with Dana too. So I'll start with the former champion, Alexia Grasso. She gets forgotten about because she's basically been fighting Valentina Shevchenko for years, and then finally she got one more fight since then. But you kind of forget about her because she hasn't been matched up with many people recently. She's a Muay Thai striker. Fairly technical on the feet, good footwork, pretty elusive. She likes to stick and move. Best avenue of defense is just not be there at all. She has that little bit going. She's got good volume. She's got quick hands, works on a nice jab, attacks with combinations, and then gets out of the way before counters. That said, she will struggle with people who's faster than her. We saw that in her last fight against Natalia Silva. She struggled with the speed. She has underrated power. I mean, she hurt Shevchenko a few times in their fights. She usually has a very good kicking game, but she completely abandoned her kicks against Natalia Silva, which I think was a huge mistake. When she is kicking, she likes to double up the kicks. She'll kick low, she'll kick high. It's very unique because it's very rare, which is fun to see. Underrated wrestler, though she's a weak defensive wrestler. Valentina Shevchenko dominated her in their third fight with the takedowns. But I mean, we know how good Valentina is with the wrestling. She does struggle to get off the bottom. She's a pretty good grappler, though. She got some good back takes. She can kind of hit subs off her back. She obviously caught Shevchenko in their first fight, and she has a good cardio goal at 25 minutes. Barber, on the other hand, for an elite fighter, she isn't a great athlete. She's a little flat-footed, especially for someone who has a bladed stance, like the karate style stance. It's surprising how flat-footed she can be at times. But she makes up for it by being extremely tough. I mean, I always go back to the fight when she like tore ACL. She kept fighting it. She can fight out of both stances. She's got good volume in the feet. She's fairly technical. She does need to change up her rhythm sometimes. Sometimes she'll throw the same attack and the same rhythm, so she can get good, intelligent fighter can pick that up. She does her best when she's pressuring her opponent. She's a bit of a bully. She likes to get in the pocket and brawl it out. She has some pop, a lot of kicks too. She loves front kicks. She'll throw some question mark kicks. She'll throw a high kick, especially from both sides. She is hittable though. She drops her hands. She keeps her head on the center line. She does really good when she closes the distance and she grinds on the clinch, where she's just physically out muscles her opponent. Has this, like I said before, she has like a mean girl bully style to her, which she should try to do against Alexia Grasso. She does good damage in the clinch. Her offensive wrestling has improved. I used to always say it was overrated. She can get takedowns. I still think it's slightly overrated, but she's a weaker defensive wrestler. And some of that she'll overthrow her strikes at times. So it gives her opponents opportunity to take her down, and she has struggled to get off the bottom. I doubt Grasso goes and tries to take down, but Grasso can. Like, I can see if Barber's on the bottom, it's because she initiated a takedown and Grasso just won the scramble. If she gets on top, though, that's where she's scary. She has some great ground and pound. Another concern, and I know she obviously made weight in her last fight and it wasn't a problem. I still worry about her weight cutting issues. Cardio has never been a problem for her, but and sometimes it has been a strength of hers. I still a little concerned, like the weight cut, like just I still worried that one day she's just going to hit a wall with her cardio. So I think it's a really good fight. I think it's a really good fight because it's a tough fight to pick. I think the line should be much even closer. I think it should be a pick 'em. Grasso is way more technical on the feet, while Barber is more physical and she has a lot of intangibles. I've taken a lot of upsets in this card. I'm going to do it again. I still think Grasso is too fast for her. I think she sticks and moves. She jabs Barber up from distance, cuts angles really well with her footwork. Hopefully she brings back her kicks and attacks Barber's calves too. I think it's going to be close, but I'm going to say Grasso by decision. And I'm doing this just because I kind of forgot it just hit me right now. I haven't done it yet. I'm going to make this my lock of the night. After I just said how hard it is to pick, I just forgot to make a lock. So I looked at my notes and I noticed, like while I was talking, lock of the night. Just give me this as my lock of the
night. There's something that, and I'm going to lead off by saying I've been wrong about Maycee Barber a lot. So whatever you hear out of me right now is partly me allocuting to that and possibly trying to adjust for it. But it reminds me of a couple of years ago. And again, Keith and I have covered every UFC card for the last 5 years plus, like hundreds. Consider this. The UFC has been around for over 30 years now. Keith and I have previewed like almost a third of all UFC cards ever. Like that's the rate at which the UFC is putting out product at this point.
Damn, dude, that's crazy.
Yeah, like we've previewed well over 200 cards. So all I'm saying is it's kind of like family members that you see a lot. You don't realize how much the niece or nephew or cousin is growing because you see them every 3 months, as opposed to the one you see it 5 years later and you're like, oh, damn, what happened to you? But with Maycee Barber, it reminds me of something I said in about 2022, 2023, where I finally went, why do I keep talking about Brendan Allen like he's a busted prospect? He's 27 years old and he's 7-2 in the UFC. Like I need to just reboot, delete half my notes, and really give a good rewatch of his entire last 3 or 4 fights. That's kind of where I am with Barber. I'm like, why do I still think of Barber as kind of this borderline bust? She's on a long win streak, and she's still just 27 years old. Yeah, like the whole I'm going to be the youngest UFC champ ever has gone by the wayside and is a punchline, like it is every time somebody says that. You know, like word of advice to all you 21-year-old phenoms out there, don't say that. You're just cursing yourself. Anyway, the transformation of Barber, like leaving aside the weight problems that I'll get to in a minute, Barber was always a pretty smart fighter, even as a really young one whose skill set was kind of limited. She was already really good at putting herself in the best position to use her weapons on her opponent. I'll never forget her knockout of no, it wasn't Jillian Robertson, it was JJ Aldridge. It was one of her first fights in the UFC where she hurt her and Aldridge kind of stumbled back to the fence and Barber went charging in after her, and where 90% of fighters, even veteran fighters, would at that point clinch and let their opponent recover, she pulled up short and threw like a flurry of punches at the perfect range and just melted her, and the fight was over. And, you know, they asked her in the post-fight interview, like, you know, walk us through that. And she's like, well, I see that happen every time. You know, they go running in too eagerly. They clinch up and their opponent recovers and the fight goes on. I just didn't want to do that. That's wonderful self-awareness for a woman that at the time was probably 21. Yeah. Barber's become a legit contender. The comparison I've made for her over the last few years, I still stand by it. There's something about her that reminds me of prime Diego Sanchez. Where it's not athleticism, it runs on physicality. And Keith and I used to disagree. Like I would say, yeah, she's athletic. Keith would say she's not athletic. It comes down to terminology. Like it's like her aggressive bully tendencies, her high motor, just there's a lot of physicality to her game. It's not athleticism. Like you stick her in the NFL combine, she's not going to do well. But in terms of just, she is the more active. Yeah.
225. How many times?
So I feel as though I know what Barbara's going to come out and do, and she's going to put herself in her best possible position to win. But Barbara's game, even now, as she's sort of peaking, I think it's not going to be anything that Grasso hasn't seen from Shevchenko and from Natalia Silva in her last few fights. Like, Shevchenko is the champ. Natalia Silva, for my money, is the second best woman in the division right now. And they both run on a physical horsepower bully game that, I mean, for Grasso to take on Barber after those two might feel like taking ankle weights off. Like, this isn't as bad as I thought it might be. So long way around to saying I'm with Keith here. Like, Grasso has been in so many 5-round fights at this point. She's been down and had to come back to win. She's lost tough decisions where she was still hanging in there at the end and trying to find ways to win. And Barber has to kind of overwhelm women over the course of a little bit of time. Like her days of just blitzing and knocking women out in 2 minutes, I think are coming to an end as she runs into Grasso type fighters. So I think Barbara's going to have her moments, but I'm with Keith here. I think Grasso wins a decision in a fun, high paced fight, but it's probably going to be Grasso pulling away later just as she figures Barber out. I don't think Barber's necessarily going to slow down badly, but I think Grasso's just better technical striking, better distance management, underrated wrestling are just going to be too much for Barber. Give me Grasso to win this one. With that, we come to the main event of UFC Fight Night 271. It is a middleweight contenders matchup between former champ Israel Adesanya and rising contender Joe Pyfer. Adesanya, the 36-year-old Nigerian New Zealander, is 24-5 overall. He is 13-5 in the UFC. He is, of course, the former longtime middleweight champ. He's at least still in the discussion for, the greatest middleweights in MMA history. He is, however, on a losing streak, the first losing streak of any kind of his entire career, and he's lost 3 in a row, dating back almost 3 full years at this point. We saw him most recently a little over a year ago in the headliner of UFC Fight Night 250, where he was knocked out early in the second round by Nasruddin Imavov. He'll look to snap that losing streak. While his job is probably safe no matter what, he's Israel Adesanya. Any last semblance of relevance in the title picture of the division he once ruled is very much on the table at this point. In order to keep that, he's going to have to get past Pyfer. 29-year-old Greater Philadelphia native is 15-3 overall. He is 6-1 since joining the UFC as a two-time veteran of Dana White's Contender Series. He, of course, very famously lost via injury TKO on season 4 to Dustin Stoltzfus, spent a year recuperating, famously thanked Dana White for basically sliding him some living money under the table to keep a roof over his head. That investment has paid off in spades as he won on season 6 and has gone on again to go 6-1 in the UFC ever since then. His only loss in the UFC came a little over 2 years ago in the headliner of UFC Fight Night 236, where he was frankly outclassed by Jack Hermansson, especially on the ground, but he has bounced back from that with 3 straight wins, culminating in a second round submission of Abus Magomedov at UFC 320 last October. So Pyfer looking for his 4th straight win, looking to insert himself into the title discussion here. Keith, your favorite is -130, underdog +110. Who are they?
I'm going to say Pyfer's the favorite.
It is actually Adesanya. Israel Adesanya -130, Joe Pyfer +110. I think this is the kind of fight where my pick has the potential to be extravagantly, spectacularly wrong, and for me to feel extra dumb on the recap Saturday night. After rewatching all 3 fights on Adesanya's losing streak. So we're talking about all of his work in the last 2.5 years. And then watching all the fights on Pyfer's 3-fight win streak. So all of his fights over the last 2 years. I still feel as though Pyfer's chances to win this fight, I mean, outside of like a silly haymaker defensive lapse of the type that we really still don't see from Israel Adesanya, his best chances of winning all involve taking Adesanya down, hurting him with ground and pound, and either pounding him out or tapping him out. I think for as long as this stays on the feet, what I see from Adesanya, I still think he's going to make Pyfer look kind of basic. If you differ on that one, I would love to hear your take on it, but just, I still see Pyfer as a guy that can throw combinations, but will kind of lapse into throwing single big shots. And they are huge shots. Like his kicks are brutal. One shot punching power, he's up there with anybody in the division, but I kind of see him swinging big, pursuing Adesanya on straight lines. Adesanya, even at this stage in his career, still has incredible movement, distance management. Like the people that have been catching him have either been niftier strikers than Pyfer, or just people like Dricus du Plessis that have really sold out to get into range, get their hands on him, and take him down. I don't think Pyfer is that guy. If he is, I will have learned something about both these fighters. But give me Adesanya to win a comfortable decision here and just kind of remind everybody how tricky, deep, complicated his stand-up game is. I don't think Adesanya has fallen off as far as the losing streak makes it look like he has.
Yeah, I mean, if he wins a decision, I really hope it's not like a Jared Cannonier, like snooze fest, which, you know, based on where he's at in his career right now, he might just be playing it safe like that.
Mm-hmm.
At his prime, Israel Adesanya might have been the best striker in the history of the sport. He's at least in the conversation.
Yeah.
The problem with his striking is, and I said this in his last couple of fights, he just doesn't strike fear in anyone like he once did. Now he's a long and lanky guy. Obviously, he's very relaxed. He fights out of both stances. He constantly flowing back and forth. He'll flow back and forth in the combination. He still moves well. He's constantly lining up his foot. so he gives him the perfect straight shot. He fights like I've said before. He fights like John Jones or Anderson Silva or even Pierre Dion, where he's like a bit of a slow starter and he's kind of setting his traps. A guy who's kind of built for 5 round fights because of that. He's good at changing the tempo. He likes to hand fight. He understands distance well, and he finds distance by kind of grabbing and using feints, setting his traps. His feints usually gets his opponents to hesitate. He still has quick hands, but not like he did, um, like the first Robert Whitaker fight or the Kelvin Gastelum fight years and years ago. And I think that makes him less accurate because obviously because it's the target moves quicker. If your hands are slower, he probably still hits really hard. I mean, he had some like I go back to like the Dracus Duplessis fight. He was having success in that fight. I mean, he was working Duplessis' body really well. I think the biggest issue with him right now is he's much easier to hit than he was before. I mean, 3 fights in a row, he's gotten hit pretty easily. He's always been a guy who's lacked head movement. He's one of these guys who's always rolled with punches, and now he's getting hit cleaner than it grazing off of him, and his chin is starting to fall apart. Now he can still mix punches and kicks together well. He's a good kicker. He tosses out kicks to the head so easily. He throws question mark kicks with no effort at all. He's a good offensive like Muay Thai clinch striker. Like he can get to the Muay Thai clinch, land strikes in the air, also can foot sweep in there. His takedown defense, it's funny, during this I almost put him as like second half of his career. Like his takedown defense, like while his striking has declined, his takedown defense has actually improved. Though I still would put his overall grappling as poor, and I would definitely favor Pyfer in a grappling matchup. Adesanya's tall and lengthy, but Joe Pyfer's a massive dude. He's a good boxer. He likes to march down his opponents. That's why he hated the pressure from Jack Hermanson. The problem is his output has been very inconsistent. I think he needs to really up his volume. One reason why you might keep his volume down is he's such a big guy. I'm sure he has a big, massive cut. He might be trying to save his cardio. He throws a lot of single strikes, but when he connects, he's got power. I mean, he throws a nice, stiff, hard power jab, a good left hook, a good overhand right. He will attack the body, and he has some serious power when he connects. He throws some mean calf kicks. He's a good wrestler. He's got good entries. He's very physically strong. He gets a leg and he's picking up his opponents, slamming them. A good topside grappler. Got some good back takes too. He loves like the traditional wrestling head and arm triangle choke. His is really good. He has, I think, he has 4 or 5 subs on his record. If you put him on the back, he's less comfortable. He struggled to get off the bottom against Jack Hermanson. And I'm concerned about his cardio, especially the 3rd, 4th, 5th round. Not that Adesanya is like a big high volume guy pressing a big pace, but I mean he won and he won convincingly, but he slowed down. I don't want to say gas against Calvin Gastelum, but he definitely slowed down in that fight. So I think Pyfer has the biggest advantage. At one time, like years ago, I would have been like the biggest advantage fight is Adesanya striking. to Pyfer's like it's not even close. Now I think the biggest advantage is probably Pyfer's ground control wrestling against Adesanya. On the feet, I still favor Adesanya, but not anywhere near the level it was. I mean, like I said, it would have been laughable in the past. I wouldn't be surprised if Pyfer just clocks him and brutally knocks Adesanya out, and we're all on Saturday saying, God, this guy's got to hang him up. He's ruined his legacy. Technically, Adesanya is still way better than him. He's still faster than him. I just don't know if he can take the shots anymore, especially with a guy who's a power puncher like Pyfer. Honestly, with the stretch he's been on, the losses he's had, Strickland, Duplessis, and Amaev, Pyfer's probably the hardest hitter of those 3.
Yeah.
I'm torn, but I thought you were taking Pfeiffer. I'm going back in the time machine. I guess me and you are together on this one. I think we're part of the band on the Titanic, my man. Like the ship might be going down and we're not paying attention. You know, we're still playing a song. Give me Adesanya to set his traps in the first round. Piece up Pfeiffer, be faster, maybe use some hopefully footwork to stay away from his big shots. And you know what? If I'm going to go down with the Titanic, let's go bold. Like I'm gonna say Adesanya has one more still left him, and he has like a you guys all forgot moment, and he knocks out Pfeiffer. I'm gonna say Adesanya, second round knockout.
And there you have it.
Third round. I'll go
third round. All right.
Yeah, third round.
There you have it. The Sherdog Radio Network preview for UFC Fight Night 271, Adesanya versus Pfeiffer, also known as UFC Seattle. I have been Ben. He has been Keith. If this is your first time watching or listening to one of our previews, first of all, thank you. We hope you enjoyed it. We do our best to bring you a mix of in-depth analysis and occasional long talks about Phil Baroni that we think is pretty unique in this space. Please do like, subscribe. Neither of those things cost you a thing. It makes our bosses happy. It allows us to keep bringing you this content free of charge. Drop us a comment. Keith and I both man the comment section. Apparently the mysterious algorithm likes comments. So yeah, let us know how you feel about these fights. We picked a ton of upsets, including 4 unanimous upsets, which off the top of my head is probably a record for us. If you think we're out of our mind on any of those, or you think we left any obvious money on the table, let us know, because if you're right and we're wrong, we will happily give you your flowers. You just need to come collect them. We're live on the Sherdog YouTube page right after the main event. We will talk about all 13 of these fights, from the headliner on down to the opener, talking about what was good, what was bad, what was surprising, what was controversial. There's always something. Talking about what's next for some of the notable winners as well as losers, and talking with you. The live chat is open that whole time, so we are taking your questions, your comments, and your hot takes in real time. We have a growing community of friends that hang out with us after the fights, and we would love for you to be part of it. Between now and then, thank you once again for listening. Enjoy the rest of your week, and by all means, enjoy these fights.